A doctored video Pelosi that surfaced this week has been viewed millions of times, and some social media giants are refusing to take it down.
Now, this sort of begs the question, if this video is okay to leave on these platforms, what else is okay to leave on these platforms?
The comment said, "She's trashed," and "She's drunk," and "How many drinks did you have today?" He says whoever made the Pelosi video used editing software that's been around for decades.
I think what's different now is the way that this kind of content can be weaponized.
There are now websites out there where you can ask people for $10, $20 to create deep fakes for you.
And right now on social media, it seems people are willing to believe the very worst about the other side.
I think you can see why this can be a real crisis for us, particularly in the upcoming 2020 elections.
Now, you might think one way to solve this would be to force the social media companies to take down these videos. But Mr. Hanna pointed out that, in fact, it takes time to investigate whether a video is real or not. And during that time, millions of people may be watching it. So the damage could already be done.
Facebook's actions drew strong criticism from media watchers. So, what should viewers expect from Facebook and other social media sites when it comes to authenticating material on their platforms?
So the video reflects this problem that we're going to increasingly face, which is that we can't trust our own eyes. So it's not that easy for the average citizen to make sense of what's true and what's false, what gets circulated, what goes viral on Facebook. And so they need to defer to people with expert opinion. I think the Republic begins to suffer if people are getting extremely bad information and the authorities, the elites, the gatekeepers are basically throwing up their hands and saying, not my problem. The last election, we saw how outside actors came in and tried to manipulate the American electorate, spreading misinformation. And Facebook was their primary platform for spreading misinformation. So what happens when those actors, when the Russians or some bad political actors here try to use manipulated video that doesn't just change a snippet in a clip, but that invents things whole cloth? I don't see how, once that fire hose is unleashed, we have any choice but to have some authority step in and make those distinctions about what's real and what's not.
And it's not just the government alone. It's not just the social media companies. It's also the media, academia involved in trying to do this. And also, we can't be promoting this stuff. And if you can't tell the difference between a doctored piece of information and not, that's troubling as well.
Late night shows often do this for a funny drunk effect, but make it clear that they edited the clips. This one purports to be authentic.
This started on a hyper-partisan far-right Facebook page. It has millions of views on there until now. Facebook says they're going to start effectively just de-ranking it a little bit to get it off the pages. They're not going to ban it outright, but it's going to be harder to find on those pages.
They're calling it demoting it.
Yeah, so what they do is they make it harder for people to stumble upon this stuff. In 2016, there was a video about Hillary Clinton having all these diseases and all of these things. That's still up on YouTube. It's an InfoWars video. Still up on YouTube, 7 million views about how she was about to die from all these diseases. We're starting to see where the stuff comes from, and we're starting to get sort of like some language around it, like an etymology of it.
Why won't Facebook take this off if they know it's altered?
They want to protect speech, they say, right? And they don't want to get in the business of taking down all of these videos specifically, because then they just take down a lot of content. So they say every time we're going to face one of these things, we're going to put it in front of fact checkers who can say this is not real, just FYI, and we can de-rank it from there. But that doesn't. You're still going to be able to encounter it, I think.
And how easy it is to edit and doctor video. It used to be if you see it with your eyes and you hear it with your ears, you can believe it.
Yeah.
But not anymore.
Not so sure.
It's been viewed millions of times on the internet, but it's not real here. This is really scary, and this is not going away, and I'm fearful this is going to be all over the 2020 election.
And they're trying to say she's like losing it, like she's becoming senile. They're going to try to push that line. And, it's pretty dirty tactics. It's politics at its worst.
Who is responsible for monitoring this stuff, taking it down? Facebook, YouTube took this down, but after how long?
YouTube took it down relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Facebook, it's still up. At least it was the last I heard. And Facebook goes through, because Facebook allows you to do a mock video, they would allow Jimmy Kimmel to do it as a mock video. So they sort of have to go through this process. Meanwhile, it's been circulated around the world. You know that old thing about a lie going around the world. It's very fast.
Travels fast.
Yeah.
So we better make sure nobody ever edits us, because we'll look like real morons.
Don't give them any ideas.
So we better make sure nobody ever edits us, because we'll look like real morons.
And they sort of see this, some of her supporters see this as a sexist attack on Pelosi, and it's really, in their words, only going to make her stronger in her caucus.
While some fake videos are used for humor, cyber pros warn voters' ability to make informed choices is now in danger.
And these videos make a candidate appear to say or appear to do things that the candidate never did. And of course, there's really no end to the various negative ways in which that can be used.
More sophisticated software can make it very difficult to tell what's real and what's fake.
This has really become the new frontier in kind of information persuasion campaigns.
You can call it information persuasion, misinformation manipulation campaigns.
The video remains on Facebook because the company does not have a policy that stipulates whatever you post must be true. Meantime, YouTube has removed the Pelosi videos.
Well, there's a couple of issues there that you got to deal with. One, the fact that they get left up.
The concern is how much impact these videos will have on the 2020 election.
And so that democratization of access to technology is in some ways where the real danger is.
The video is fake. It's manipulated. Numerous audio and video experts and fact-checking organizations have confirmed that. But that video in particular has been viewed by millions of people on Facebook. And in fact, it's still up on Facebook, even though Facebook knows it's fake. They've added comments from independent fact checkers to inform people who watch it and have made it less prominent, but it is still up there. Now, YouTube took it down, but it's still up on Twitter. They're not even commenting about it. So, Monica, in the wake of the 2016 election, obviously Facebook has repeatedly told Congress, the American people, that you're serious about fighting disinformation and fake news. Yet this doctored video that I think your own fact checkers acknowledge is doctored of Speaker Pelosi remains on your platform. Why?
And this is part of the way that we deal with misinformation. We work with internationally certified fact-checking organizations that are independent from Facebook, and we think these are the right organizations to be making decisions about whether something is true or false. So as soon as we get a rating from them that content is false, then we dramatically reduce the distribution of that content, and we let people know that it's false so they can make an informed choice.
Why keep it up, though?
Yeah.
So
but
misinformation
that
doesn't promote violence, but misinformation that, portrays the third most powerful, politician in the country as a drunk or somehow impaired, that's fine.
No, what's important to us is making sure that people have the accurate information to make their own choice.
But it's not accurate
information. And I think
information.
if you look right now at we are telling people that this is false,
right,
and
but
we
you're
are
not,
putting that
but
information
video
out there
is powerful
from our
than your
network.
Right, but the video is more powerful than whatever you're putting under the video. You certainly have this scale to decide something that you know is clearly fake. It's not even a question. I guess I still just don't logically understand. I understand it's a big business to get into of trying to figure out what's true or not, but you're making money by being in the news business. If you can't do it well, shouldn't you just get out of the news business? If you are in this particular case spreading and allowing the spread of a clearly false doctored video, again, you're in the news business. There's a responsibility that comes with that.
What is your analysis and what is important for viewers to know if we're going to go into a campaign season where we're going to see more and more of this, pardon the term, but crap?
I think the other thing here, too, to keep in mind is just how unprepared social media platforms really are for this kind of misinformation, particularly in the lead up to the 2020 presidential campaign.
And the saying, life comes at you fast, well, the internet comes at you faster.
Yeah. And you're going to need a generation of news deliverers or reporters or outlets that are arbiters of this stuff.
Eventually, the culture of how we get information, I mean, speed is so important, but could we get to a point where people say, oh, yeah, I saw that, I heard about that, I'm going to wait till tomorrow and find out from the fact checkers whether it's even real?
That election and what happened after that was a real wake-up call for us.
You have no place on our platforms.
And then working with our engineers and our content reviewers to build the tools to find that content and remove it.
Why? Because it's the right thing to do. And as we showed this year, we won't give a platform to violent conspiracy theorists on the App Store.
Twitter is rethinking some of its algorithms in an attempt to cut down on the spread of hate speech and false information.
We've got a statement now with regard to PayPal and reports that it has ended its relationship with InfoWars. In it, their statement from a PayPal spokesperson said that we have undertaken an extensive review of the InfoWars site and found instances that promoted hate or discriminatory intolerance against certain communities and religions, which run counter to our core values of inclusion. For that reason, they have ended their relationship.
Now Facebook apologizing to a Texas newspaper for part of the Declaration of Independence being labeled as hate speech.
And you saw a lot of neo-Nazi sympathizers suddenly taking to social networks like Facebook to put their anti-immigration views across. This is why there is such focus to tackle this in Germany, notably as they got, of course, the key election about to happen in September.
So in the last quarter, we've actually removed nearly 3 million posts for containing hate speech.
Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Microsoft have all agreed to European regulations.
This quote around free speech wing of the Free Speech Party was never a mission of the company. It was a joke.
It was a joke.
What we try to do here is publish information about these people, where they are, what groups they're involved in, what they're publishing.
We work with Google on using AI to try to interrupt cyber hate before it happens. We work with YouTube to get them to change their algorithms. We work with Facebook on trying to use a redirect method.
And why isn't it getting acknowledged? We watch our president talk badly about globalists, the media, international banks, and we know what that's code for.
And when you talk about globalists, another phrase used by right-wing extremists.
What's the ADL going to do? We are going to fight back. We're going to fight back against the fascists and neo-Nazis. What does that mean? It means we're not going to wait for the White House. We're going to be working with state and local leaders, the business community, other nonprofits, and clergy. Richard, the bottom line is this. There are no two sides to this argument. It's good versus evil.
The abuse online can be far, far worse than anything physical.
Conspiracy theories that literally leap off the pages of white supremacist playbooks.
Launching a new war room so it can strike back. The goal, prevent another 2016.
In addition to taking action on hateful conduct online, Twitter says it will leverage its platform's capabilities to empower positive voices that challenge prejudice.
And that's why Systrom has made it his mission to make kindness itself the theme of Instagram through two new phases. First, eliminating toxic comments, a feature that launched this summer. And then second, elevating nice comments. Apps like Facebook and YouTube do allow users to turn comments off. But what Instagram's new feature does is block offensive comments from showing up on your post in the first place.
Was the next part of ADL's project. And I think a few of you have this at your seat, but this came out today. It is Control-Alt-Delete, recommendations of the ADL task force on the online harassment of journalists. And what we've done is we've broken it down into 3 different areas. Recommendations for industry, recommendations for journalists, advocates, and targets, and recommendations for law enforcement and policymakers. We're going to have a speaker following from Twitter who's going to explain about the actions that they've taken very recently to really track this head on.
So once Pepe became a recognized hate symbol by the Anti-Defamation League, I reached out and was like, hey guys, I'm on the same team here. Like, I don't want this frog to be a hate symbol.
Sure, well, part of the problem is there is no one agreed upon definition of alt-right. I mean, I tend to think of it as including everything from white supremacists and neo-Nazis to, 20-year-olds in their parents' basement tweeting offensive, racist, and anti-Semitic things at reporters, which has been another evolution we've seen this political cycle.
We would consider the Family Research Council a hate group. Some people might consider that controversial, but they consistently demonize the LGBT community, spread propaganda, demonizing propaganda about them, trying to link them to pedophilia, it's not just about gay marriage. Well, today, they may not be, killing people, But what they are doing is going to the White House and having an influence over public policy. So, that's a different form of danger. So we worry about both the hate mongers who wear, kind of white sheets and the hate mongers who wear business suits. They're both dangerous and dangerous in different ways. The one thing we don't require for a listing on our hate group list is violence. We don't say a group has to be a violent group to be a hate group. It can be spewing hateful propaganda and not engaging in violence, and we would call it a hate group.
And we decided, look, we're going to take this down. We don't think it has any business being on the internet, so we gave 24 hours notice to the Daily Stormer to move their site.
You may not have heard of internet firm Cloudflare. Even its CEO says that. Last week, though, it got a lot of attention. It terminated the account of the Daily Stormer.
One of my fellow employees came up to me the day that we took it offline and said, hey, is this the day the internet dies? The question is this hypocritical? Yes. So fuck them. They're off the internet.
And the minute that we start down that path, there is a slippery slope to a place where we are the ones making that determination on what is good and what is bad. And so instead, what we think of ourselves again as is Switzerland. We think of ourselves as that neutral party. And nobody really likes the Swiss, but they respect them. And I hope that that's kind of the place that we're at as well.
Fuck them. They're off the internet.
Why are people being suspended for tweeting #LearnToCode?
Yep.
So it wasn't about just the learn to code. It was about the context that we were seeing.
Come on, that's just not true. That's just not true. The editor-in-chief of the Daily Caller was suspended for tweeting nothing but #LearnToCode.
So, Tim, can I finish what I was saying?
Yeah.
So we were looking at the context, and what was happening is there were journalists receiving hundreds of tweets. Some had death threats, some had wishes of harm, some just learned to code. And in that particular context, we made a decision. We consider this type of behavior dogpiling, which is when all of a sudden individuals are getting tons and tons of tweets at them. They feel very abused and harassed.
It's not really the extremists anymore that hate is being normalized, and that's what we need to worry about. But if hate is being normalized and normal people are participating in the Unite the Right marches and other marches and browsing the websites and going to the dark web or the not so dark web where a bunch of these hateful things are occurring, then some of those people are at least potentially fine people, normal people. So how do we think about whether or not hate is being normalized or whether we should still regard it as an extremist section of America that we ought to ostracize?
So fuck them. They're off the internet.
Dozens of flyers like this one are popping up on the University of Idaho's campus. The school's president, Chuck Staben, says the slogan, "It's okay to be white," is associated with white supremacists and neo-Nazi groups.
A Florida Gulf Coast University student admitted to hanging these flyers on campus. They say it's okay to be white. 19-year-old Griffin Baker-Royo said he put up the signs to protest a new class on campus called White Racism.
Well, Griffin Baker-Royo is still awaiting tonight to hear if he'll be punished or not by the university for putting up those posters that read, "It's okay to be white." He hasn't been criminally charged, but we do know that he's been referred to student affairs here at the university.
Baker-Royo says his posters were not meant to be racist, but many at FGCU say they were offended by his act, especially Dr. Ted Thornhill, who teaches the white racism class. He found one of the signs on his office door.
I think is cowardly and unwarranted.
It's a slogan that has been used by people like David Duke, a former wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, and he often uses it. You could Google this. It takes less than 5 minutes to find out. What I think people are protesting is the idea that adapting the messaging and the framing of people like this should never occur in our federal parliament. So the idea that somehow white people are experiencing a level of racism that deserves to be condemned and recognized at the national parliament diminishes the real experiences of other people that experience day-to-day racism. And then, because Lauren Southern comes to Australia wearing a "It's okay to be white" shirt and people protested, 29 senators goes and vote on a notion that it's okay to be white. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Holding signs on this Vancouver overpass saying it's okay to be white. During this interview, the Rose City Antifa shows up.
Bunch of racists. Oh yeah, it's okay to be white. F you.
It's at this point where the clashes begin.
This is white bull.
my country.
It's your country.
This is my country.
Your country.
This flag is your privilege. This whole country and all the privilege is for you and me.
At the very least, this thing, Ken, I saw the signs. It's concerning. I mean, at the least.
They're
right?
wondering why, and exactly what was the intention in all of this. The neighborhood seemed to have been tagged with handfuls of signs printed on paper. Those signs read, "It's okay to be white." That's what was printed on them, but no one knows who put them up.
Here's what it looked like along Waverly Lane in North Fort Worth early Thursday morning. Cell phone video and pictures taken of the area show the signs reading, "It's okay to be white," posted onto lampposts and other pieces of public property. By the time we got there, all of the signs except for this one were gone, but it didn't stay up too much longer.
I'm about as white and as old as you're going to get in this neighborhood.
Clearly, Lois Burt, one of the neighbors here, is opposed to the message, one that some have deemed as being discriminatory. District 4 Councilman Kerry Moon isn't taking it lightly.
I condemn any type of literature sign that is posted that may be offensive to some folks.
All of this comes on the heels of a recent report sent to council members about anti-immigrant activity in other parts of the city involving, quote, the placement of defamatory banners and flyers on public property.
There's just not a place for this in Fort Worth, and it's not indicative of the true Forest spirit.
Well, the councilman said this kind of activity is considered a Class C misdemeanor, and those responsible could face a citation. He also said instead of ripping the signs down, neighbors should call police immediately and leave those signs up since they are considered to be evidence, and then just let the police investigate the situation.
Montgomery Blair's principal believes this "It's okay to be white" poster could be part of a national campaign to create racial tension, and they believe this hooded person is behind it.
All of us are equal.
We showed a picture of the flyer to students.
Really? Really those type of posters in a school as diverse as Blair?
School stats show 15% of the students are Asian, 24% are black, and the majority, 33%, are Hispanic.
As a parent, yeah, it's something that troubles me, it troubles us.
The principal sent parents a letter that says in part, "We will not fall victim to attempts to divide us. We're committed to providing a safe and welcoming environment for every student."
I'm hoping that there's not a repeat, but I guess we'll see.
Here's what's going on. Yesterday, these flyers were posted to at least 2 different locations, the University of Maryland and Montgomery Blair High School in Silver Spring. Well, this did upset a University of Maryland student who tweeted the flyer with her own message. And being on social media, she got a flood of responses, but she says this also included death and rape threats. So now police resources are involved. Prince George's County Police Department, they're investigating. Montgomery County Police are aware of it.
Well, Jeff, Jennifer, good evening. I'm told those flyers have been showing up on street lights, and they read, "It's okay to be white." One neighbor here telling me that this part of town is a melting pot, and she just wants everybody to feel safe.
And on a lamppost there, it was just right smack in my eye line. Like somebody had put it there intentionally. So I instantly ripped it down.
Mary Elizabeth Summer couldn't believe it. This flyer found just down the street from her front door. She says it made her so upset she took it home and then ran it through the shredder. Others around Beaverton's Sexton Mountain spotting them too.
My neighbor, Naomi, she also came across one today and sent me a picture of it.
That flyer, it seems, is not unique to these streets. Far from it. The Sacramento Bee just earlier this month reports identical ones popping up around American River College. And in Florida, the Anti-Defamation League says a Target employee placed this card with that same message in a box of diapers there. What started as a prank on the online forum 4chan, now reported as being associated with white nationalism.
I am married to a half-black woman, and this neighborhood is very culturally diverse. We have Indians, we have Jewish people, we have, every color you can imagine. And if it were me, and I was coming up the street of my neighborhood and I saw that, I would not feel safe.
Tonight, the NAACP is calling on administrators at Florida Gulf Coast University to do something about a new sign posted on campus that says it's okay to be white.
Someone put up the posters a couple days ago. The FGCU vice president says they were taken down yesterday, but many students on campus feel removing the signs is just a Band-Aid on an issue affecting the university.
Flyers with white supremacy sentiment going around, and now posters on the Cohen Center building that read, "It's okay to be white."
To spread more awareness at FGCU, the university is offering a class called White Racism, a discussion on race, immigration, and white supremacy in the post-Obama era.
This afternoon, Tufts University investigating after signs reading, "It's okay to be white," were put up on the campus quad. The signs were pasted on "Get Out the Vote" lawn signs and a few cars nearby. Police say they received a report about the vandalism around 2 this morning.
Some signs popping up in a Metro Vancouver neighborhood are catching some attention. On Thursday, a Twitter user in New Westminster posted a photo of something she spotted around this area of downtown on 8th Street. It was a sign, and it read, "It's okay to be white." Vanessa Wasnow lives in the area and first noticed them while getting off the bus.
And it just stopped me in my tracks. I was really horrified to see that. So I ripped it down. First I took a photo because I wanted to alert people to the fact that this is happening in my city. Then I tore it down and I kept walking, and then I was even more horrified to see that there was another poster and another one. It's really worrying to see tangible evidence of what I think a lot of people think only exists in online spheres.
The signs have since been taken down. I did, however, manage to find one still crumpled up on the ground right next to where it had been posted. Vanessa says if she sees any more signs popping up in the street, she plans to take them down. In the meantime, the New West Police Department says they haven't received any complaints, but have opened an investigation.
The flyers ripped down, but the message,
I couldn't really believe it,
still stapled to the minds of students at Bates College.
It's not something that we're going to tolerate, whoever it's coming from.
They read, "It's okay to be white," many calling it white supremacy propaganda, fearing the message it not only sends to students, but the entire Lewiston community. Bates is working actively with the Lewiston Police Department to investigate where these flyers were posted, by whom, and with what intent. We condemn any attempt to incite hatred and bigotry based on race, as contrary to Bates' most deeply held values. Values echoed by students like Natasha Kaluzinski.
They're not welcome here. Their views aren't welcome here. Their hate isn't welcome here.
Signs saying it's okay to be white appearing on the campus of Florida Gulf Coast University in Estero. And this comes after last year when several racially charged messages were left around campus.
Here's another look at the signs. They read, "It's okay to be white." Some students turn to social media, tweeting about not being okay with the posts.
In certain situations, I think it's best to keep things like that to yourself and off campus.
It's common to see flyers scattered around college campuses, but one message popping up at some UC schools is really turning heads and raising questions.
The "It's okay to be white" flyers could be found all over the UC Davis campus, on sandwich boards, underneath bridges, and on garbage cans. Senior Aless Lee says the signs went up on cultural safe zones too.
There was also one next to the Chicano Latino Resource Center as well. So they've been posted everywhere.
The "It's okay to be white" message met with uncertainty.
Are you insinuating that people of color are saying that it's bad to be white?
Lee is on the UC Davis Black Leadership Council, which called a town hall meeting Friday to discuss the posters and racial tension on campus.
Whoever's posting these photos, I don't think they're realizing how triggering these posters are for people.
UC Davis Chancellor Gary May wrote an editorial in the California Aggie reading in part, UC Davis has been and should continue to be a focus for wide open dialogue on an unlimited range of ideas, including those that many find disturbing. Anonymous flyers, however, are not dialogue.
Though not verbalized by a group or individual, these bold messages are loud and clear, part of somewhat of a back-and-forth saga in East Grand Rapids. It's okay to be white, and white people don't be fooled. Now answered with, Nazi lives don't matter, and this poster standing against racism, sexism, and all forms of bigotry.
I've lived in the area for like 18, 19 years, and it's the first thing that's kind of hit home that's so close. I mean, you hear about it on the news that it happens in other, areas, maybe in Grand Rapids, but this is a little close.
And the Public Safety Department says that it is continuing to investigate to figure out who's behind all of this.
"It's okay to be white" sounds much more innocuous than what they're actually saying, which is it's okay to be pro-white power. An incorrect response would be something like this.
The sentiment, "It's okay to be white," is now a hate crime. Okay, so what's the correct position? That it's not okay to be white?
Don't worry, you're already in the correct position, Tuck. Bending over backwards for white nationalists. Yay!
here at Wrigley Field last night when the fan sitting right behind him made a hand gesture that has been associated with white supremacy. Here's a look.
Especially when you think back and look back the last 7 days.
The person responsible for that gesture will never be welcome back at Wrigley Field.
The fan makes a hand gesture associated with racism.
The incident last night is, truly disgusting. I think, it gave me shivers to watch that, that would take place at Wrigley Field. We've made clear how egregious and unacceptable that behavior is, and there's no place for it in our society, in baseball, and certainly no place at Wrigley Field.
After an investigation, the team says it violated the guest code of conduct.
This is a place of inclusion. This is a place of connectedness. We are a welcoming organization. They're calling this gesture ignorant and repulsive. Now, the fan behind him made the gesture that we've blurred out because it's just not appropriate and really offensive. It's a hand symbol often used by white supremacists.
Is reprehensible, it's ignorant, and it's not welcome at our ballpark.
This morning, the Cubs are also saying that any fan or really anyone in the ballpark who does something like this will not only be removed, but they'll be permanently banned from Wrigley Field.
After the game, Doug Glanville posted a statement on Twitter saying, in part, "I applaud the responsiveness of both the Chicago Cubs organization and NBC Sports in investigating this matter. They have displayed sensitivity as to how the implications of this would affect me as a person of color."
But look at the intern in the back row. He's making a hand gesture that's quite different than any of the others. To some, it appears to symbolize white power. The white power signal is made with the right hand and outstretched fingers that make a W and P, as in white power. But notice this kid in the front row. He appears to be making the white power sign.
And they're doing it because they're trying to show white power. And I'll give you an example of what that means. This is a W, right? You put your fingers up like this, and this could be a P, right? What they're trying to say is, yes, actually we are affirming white power, but it is also a secret hand sign that are used amongst each other to affirm that they are white supremacists or white nationalists or members of the alt-right.
The accused gunman in the New Zealand mosque attacks bringing attention to a particular symbol of hate. The suspect appeared to flash a hand sign that traditionally means okay, but has increasingly been adopted by white supremacists and neo-Nazis.
It appeared that she was sitting in a way that, for some reason, her hands formed the white supremacy symbol. That is the sort of the okay with the three fingers flared out for white. You know, they have a secret handshake because that's the way you do when you're a white supremacist.
Whatever it was, that's a very key word.
Whatever it was to you is not what it is.
Not so much anymore.
Now, it's been co-opted. It then took on another level of meaning even beyond that when it was actually adopted as a white power symbol, as a white supremacist code. That is what it is now.
But in the deep, dark recesses of the internet, on places that you just shouldn't go and read about things, this symbol, by some, has been used as a code word, essentially, as the secret password into the door, so that those who have these ideals can throw it up on national television.
Do dogs do drag?
Do dogs do drag? I mean, they can. You can dress a dog up in a dress and take them on stage with you.
I guess I would start by asking you if you've heard of the term climate change.
Do you think that sometimes it's not okay to have an abortion?
I want to say if you're being reckless, if there's nothing wrong going on.
I don't know. I just don't agree.
Do you know what it means to be transgender? No? It means that you were a boy or a girl and you change. You transition from one to the other.
You change to like a different one?
What was your first reaction when you found out you were pregnant?
I was scared. I had just turned 14.
Oh.
Whoa.
Have you ever been in trouble, like serious trouble?
It's been kind of a longer stay grounded where you can't
leave this certain area, say it's a square.
Wait, oh, I got it. You've been to jail before?
Yes, I've been to jail.
Have you heard of the vagina before?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just making sure. You know about the vagina. Okay, good.
Have you ever met a gay person before?
I think I have met somebody who is, but they're like my age.
Have you ever known any LGBTQ kids in your
My
own school?
sister.
Oh, wow.
What makes a boy a boy? An X and a Y chromosome. Oh, so like, is there anything to name, like on the outside of somebody? Like, genitalia. What? Yeah, that's on the outside, I'm just saying. I don't know where we're going. Like, yeah, I don't either. So, you were apparently a former Black Panther.
Yes, I was a former Black Panther. What do you know about the Black Panthers?
They were founded in 1966, I think. And like a thing that initiated it was the shooting of Malcolm X.
Okay, that's good stuff. What did you know?
I think I read the same webpage as she does. So.
Okay.
This is the surface of the uterus. Here, this is the vagina. And if someone's having sex, a little sperm can meet the egg right here to form a pregnancy.
I do not like our president right now, especially because he's going to be our president for 8 years.
4 years.
Oh, yeah, 4. Yeah.
What was that?
Fart.
Did you do that?
No.
Oh. Yeah, so I take care of problems with poop and farting.
What is your job?
I am a divorce attorney.
What do you mainly do?
I mainly help people get divorces.
Wait, so are you a divorced lawyer?
Am I a divorced lawyer?
Yeah.
I am both a divorce lawyer, that is a lawyer who practices divorce law, and I am also, incidentally, a divorced lawyer. I have been married and am no longer.
Very close to a banker.
I am a bank robber.
I was a bank robber.
Yes. How much money did you rob? What is drag?
It's when you dress up in a costume and express your creativity through performance. You can put on a costume and wigs and lip sync to a song or sing a song and just entertain people and have a good time.
Can you teach me some drag moves?
Some drag
Moves.
moves? And you gotta land like this.
Ouch.
I hit my head on the chair.
Like, do you like boys, or you just like boys, like as a friend?
Yeah, I like boys as a friend.
Oh, do you ever think boys are cute?
No.
Oh. But if you did, you know mommy would be okay with that, right?
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? What do you mean?
I didn't know you'd be okay with that.
Of course I'd be okay with it. Well, whatever you're happy with. No, but it's okay if boys like boys and girls like boys, right? Or girls like girls.
Barstool is back in the news once again, thanks to a partnership with the Boston Bruins that some people find deeply problematic.
Okay, I can see that's a very sexist towel.
It says pucks on net, Tucker. So that is my phrase. To score goals, you shoot pucks on net. A lot of people had a major problem with this, with our company on it.
I think he's risking it all with this business about whipping up his troll army to crush and eviscerate his enemies. Particularly with vile misogyny, threats of violence. One of these days, one of those losers that rally behind him are going to act on these threats, and then what will Portnoy do?
You know, we're at a time, these things, this type of language, this type of conduct that's either embedded with hate or vulgarity or misogyny or that is sexist or racist, it's not new. Explicit in the mission of the NHL and the Bruins to make the league, but to make it more inclusive and diverse. And I think anytime we give any type of endorsement, passive or explicit, to the conduct of activity of organizations like, and I'll say it once and only, Barstool, which is basically Gamergate turned into a business model with a veneer of sports slapped on it. I mean, you know, however they erred in this, either purposefully or by accident, has allowed it to be part of this great sport. And you don't beat that down by competing brand. There's no competition between a brand of vulgarity, sexism, racism, you know, white supremacy against a brand of our core values of who we are, a tolerant, compassionate civil society that is inclusive. Our beloved team and the NHL is silent on it. They could easily they just should address it and admit that it was a mistake.
We weren't going out of the way. The Bruins called us. There's a sales guy called me up, said, hey, we need a sponsor for the towel. Are you interested? I said, sounds good. All our fans love the Bruins. They love hockey. Half the players in the league we've worked with. We've worked with every team in the league. We're huge in the NHL. We have the #1 NHL podcast in the world, Spit and Chickless. Seems like a natural fit. It was a win-win for everybody, I thought.
I don't agree with it. I don't think that that Barstool Sports is a positive organization. I think it's a corrosive organization, just my opinion. I think it's sexist, it's mean-spirited, and I don't pay much attention to it, but I know they're very popular, and I think that it's just not good for the Bruins right now. I don't think it's a good company to be associated with.
Barstool brand is very popular, but it's also toxic, as Adam and Mike point out. What I don't understand about this is that doing this at a time when the NHL is trying to reach beyond their traditional base of white male fans and appeal to families and women and children, and this cuts against that completely. Obviously, they've made a decision that this is good for them, but I don't know if they made the right decision.
People who don't like life laugh. They don't like to laugh. They don't like fun. They don't like men. They don't like America. Those people, they hated this. They absolutely hated this. They pulled their hair out. They demanded answers from the Bruins. Turned it into World War III. A lot of good press for us, because I don't care. Any press is good press. If somebody reads this and has a brain, like, who are these guys sponsoring, likes hockey, likes fun, then you become a Barstool fan. People piling on, saying I'm the Klan and this and that. Those people don't watch hockey. They never heard of us. They are serial protesters, serial fun killers, and they don't even know what they're mad about. They literally wake up, it's like, what can I get mad about today? This towel? This towel is
it's
what
a very
you're gonna be mad
sexist
about?
towel.
It's the most basic towel in the history of towels.
I think they're just a bunch of snowflakes who can't take criticism.
Barstool is pretty upfront about this. Their target are white males at the end of the day. That's their target audience. And, we seem to go tone deaf. I think we cannot let that type of activity penetrate. I think we cannot let it penetrate any of our beloved institutions or the events and activities.
Because there was one response to Jessica's column, which I just almost puked when I heard it. I don't even want to repeat it.
Yeah.
But
that could
she
be
got that.
One of 100 she received.
Right, she
way.
did. Yeah, I mean they told her what to do with the towel, which was just it was absurd.
I don't know many who would partner. That's their decision. But I think when you do that, you should own up to it. Well, that's your decision, but be ready to answer for it in many forms.
But yeah, I guess it's more the same.
I mean, the people who said who's next going to sponsor the next game, the KKK. The comparisons are out of this fucking world.
If you respond with like a joke to Wagner, they'll be like, you just sexually assaulted her.
Yeah, it's like, you are stalking me.
How about her? You see her
She
tweet
literally
being
goes,
like, I guess the Bruins are done sucking Dave Portnoy's dick.
That won me back over with her, though. I like this fucking woman.
No, I
What
like
a
that
tweet.
too. Everybody should be able to say that kind of shit, but then you can't turn around and be like high and mighty if you're going to talk about sucking Dave Portnoy's dick.
If they feel a certain way about Barstool and then you come for them, then, hey, they're saying is, yo, we're going to protect our people, which is Barstool, and now we are going to come for you.
And that's fine. I have no issue with people, disagreeing with your opinion. No doubt, no issue with that at all. But why does it have to resort to personal attacks?
But that's
why?
People on the left. They are notorious, especially far left. They're notorious for going after people in personal ways. They're notorious for digging up old stuff about people. They're notorious for name calling people. That's what they do. So now it's like, you know what? When you give them a taste of their own medicine, now it's all of a sudden.
No, my point is like this again. This Marissa and Jemmy was just asking a question. She's a Bruins beat writer. She was asking a question. She wasn't writing an opinion piece, and she gets inundated with hate.
What's the question
Why?
she's
There's
asking,
something
though?
wrong with that. Asking the Bruins for comment about their partnership with Barstool.
But see, that's
which
like,
is totally fair question to ask.
It's not a totally fair question. That's like a question you're trying to dig to get some, like you said, clickbait. You're digging for some dirt to ask this question, and I think it's more so about your hypocrisy.
Oh yes. How so?
Well,
in this case,
it's like you'll say, oh, we shouldn't dig into people's past when it's somebody you like. But when it's somebody,
he didn't even dig in on it.
No, I'm not saying in this situation here. Listen to what I'm saying. in the past where you might say, no, it's wrong to dig into somebody's past tweets and this, or don't judge them for what they did in the past if you like that person. But if you don't like that person, and I'm just throwing the name out there, for example, because I know you and Chilling don't get along, but you'll then say, oh, it's relevant to talk about what they said in their past and relates to what.
But again, the Schilling tweets and all that stuff we talk. But those are controversies in real time.
I'm not saying the actual tweets.
Those are actually offensive.
All I'm saying, it's the hypocrisy that a lot of people might feel towards you.
But they invite it too. Like the issue that Portnoy will always say, and I've asked him this when I've interviewed him, do you take responsibility for the harassment that your followers, bestow upon people who criticize you? And he goes, no, I have nothing to do with that. But you do. They encourage that. Because someone like Portnoy can make a tweet, make a statement, say, harassment is not okay. And then you know what? These sycophants wouldn't do it because they want to be retweeted.
Right, but you'll say he's wrong for that, right? But then when Jemele Hill does the same thing with the comment of, reach for your pocket or whatever it was, where she was insinuating somebody should assassinate the president, because you like her, you'll say, oh, she's just being just. She's not being serious. People are not going to really fall into what she's saying. They're not really going to do that. Because you like that person, now you sound like a hypocrite. Why wasn't that same vitriol towards Jemele Hill when she said
well, first of all, that one incident you're talking about, Jemele Hill has tweeted that phrase many times in the past. She even had a screenshot with her previous tweets.
But see how you make an excuse for it.
It's not an excuse. That's putting something in context. You sound like a moron. So let me go step by step with you here. I've never applauded Trump administration members getting harassed at restaurants, but yes, if you are a member of the White House staff,
you're lying.
Josh, if you're a member of the White House staff, okay, fine. You're right. I have no issue. If you're Kirstjen Nielsen and you're architecting a policy at the border of separating families, Josh, and people want to say something to you at a restaurant, there's nothing wrong with that. You're right. There's nothing wrong with that.
Rima, you're an immature little fraud who your dad.
But there is something wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
There is something wrong with that.
Because you have to be held accountable.
No, just because you don't agree with somebody's political beliefs and what they say, you're saying as long as it's on your side and you see somebody at a restaurant, you want to make a point to say something to them, go ahead. But if they're on the other side, you're like, oh, that's wrong. You should never approach somebody
absolutely with you.
Well, it's not politics though. I think separating children from their families and losing track of kids is not just politics. That's pretty gross and inhumane.
You have no problem with a guy who says if you see Trump supporters, you should punch him in the face. Now, granted,
I never said punch anybody in the face.
That's what this guy said, and you said it wasn't a big deal.
No, he made a joke about urinating in someone's food, which is different.
But how is that different? It's the flip-flopper that you are. We should get him a pair of eye slides.
Ooh.
Pivot like Mark James, pivot in the paint.
It should be a picture of Reamer, and it should be the flip-flop.
The Bruins aren't commenting, but Portnoy is taking a victory lap, tweeting, "The towel thing has reinvigorated my desire to crush and eviscerate all my enemies. So, thank you."
And the thing is, it didn't surprise me they get mad. They get mad about everything, but we stay to what we do. We continue to get bigger. We continue to get stronger. And all these people, the faces change, but they stop. They have freelance jobs because you don't win by just complaining about everything. If I complained as much as they did, I drown in my own tears. Another thing they do, they say, people are saying mean things to us on Twitter. Well, you called me a Nazi, and people who like me are like, that's mean. You shouldn't do that. Guess what? I get the meanest things ever said about me. I'm sure you do, too.
I have, yeah.
If I sat and worried and complained and said, oh, me, you're complaining about me, I get nothing done. These people, what do they do with their lives? How can you get one lady, one reporter who wrote a horrible article about us? She said, oh, I'm getting attacked by the Barstool people. See, this is what they do. You know how many tweets she had? 5. We have millions and millions of followers. 5 people said that you wrote a bad article. You're going to cry about that? What do you expect?
So she attacks you, but she's the victim.
Correct. And that is what they all do. And there's no way around it. We're a big, popular organization. We have loyal, rabid fans, which have been following us for 15 years, know our true culture, know what we stand about. If you say I'm a scumbag, they take that as a personal offense. It's bananas. They tweet in public. It's a public forum that they say they hate me. And then if someone says, guess what? You're the scumbag, they cry. Oh, poor me, poor me. Just shut up. Worry about yourself. You don't have to worry about us. If you don't like the towel, don't pick it up. Don't pick it up. It's that simple. This is a sales deal. The Bruins have been sponsored by banks, huge organizations. Do you think that there's not bad stuff? This story I'll tell quick. One guy who wrote, this is a true story, Tucker, a guy from St. Louis who wrote a story about how the Bruins should be ashamed. He was arrested for robbing a bank. He's a bank robber. This guy's a legitimate bank robber.
So it's the no fun community, the PC community, and the bank robbers.
And the bank robbers.
Well,
Trending now.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. Instagram, the Snapchat, or the LinkedIn.
Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Every picture, every post, every comment.
So Snapchat versus Instagram.
So tough. It's really a news source for a lot of millennials. I check Snapchat first thing in the morning. That's how I get my #1 source of news.
If not careful, taking a picture of yourself could kill you. A 2018 study found that selfie-related deaths are actually on the rise.
She was trying to hit 100 miles an hour and post it on Snapchat.
Just minutes after the passenger recorded the video, police say the car crossed over a median and slammed head-on into a minivan.
A 30-year-old woman and her husband fell to their deaths in Yosemite National Park, reportedly while taking a selfie. 259 selfie deaths between October 2011 and November of last year.
Guys, you may have noticed it also. Facebook and Instagram apologized a little after noon Eastern time yesterday, saying they were working to get things back to normal. Facebook and Instagram were apologetic, but that didn't help many users trying to get their fix of cute puppies and seeing what their friends ate for lunch.
Social media has dramatically changed the way teens interact.
Their heads down, buried in their phones.
The average person will spend 5.5 years on social media. That's more time than we spend eating.
So within 5 minutes of waking up, they have their phone in their hands. The average person picks up their phone about 85 times a day.
Because you have people going on there posting their status, and giving updates to every move that they're making.
Online about 9 hours a day.
Every student has a phone in there.
And so I decided to just put it all out there. Yellow. Hey, what are you doing? I'm pooping. What are you doing? Me too. Toilet twins! I'm onto something. My weirdness is being accepted. What is going on? And then I couldn't stop. It just exploded. Somebody stop me.
I post a lot. I think Facebook is a great way to connect, because my kids would be like, "Where were you, Mom?" And just look on Facebook. If you want to know where I am, just look on Facebook.
The controversy known as Dressgate.
Viral image or marketing genius. This picture of a dress took the internet by storm last night.
Blue and black, white and gold. The dress is going viral.
It's about this dress breaking the internet.
It broke the internet. Kim Kardashian says white and gold.
I see a bunch of something I can't say.
Yes, it is dividing people into two very distinct camps.
That is right, and this thing is really breaking social media records. So,
folks, if you haven't heard about this already, a dress has broken the internet.
The color controversy surrounding the dress has sparked internet outrage.
You know what I see? What? That we have dedicated 3 minutes of airtime to this dress. Enough. Shaney, thank you very much.
I see the fall of civilization. Right now, a new filter on Snapchat is going viral. The feature allows you to see what you would look like as the opposite gender. He used the photo to create a fake online dating profile as a woman and says he already has been offered to travel around America with someone. But of course, we had to try the filters out. Here's mine.
Oh, wow.
Do you look like your brother? What do you mean?
I look like Jeray.
Oh my gosh. Which explains. Wow. Oh my. You can tag us, right? Tag us in your photos. We'd love to see them.
I look great. Okay,
you look like you're in a boy band.
I do look like I'm in a boy band. I look like I'm in a defunct boy band. I look like one of the Backstreet Boys years later.
Yeah.
I'm like, bring back the glory days.
Life got rough. And here's what I would look like if I were a woman and things have really...
You look pretty.
I'm not that bad.
You're not that bad.
Hey.
You look really pretty.
But now it's all about the gender swap filter on Snap.
And honestly, it is hilarious.
Nothing like an 8-month pregnant dude.
Earlier this month, Snapchat introduced a new filter. It allows users to swap genders with the touch of a button. Members of the transgender community now weighing in.
That's what Snapchat is telling me I would look like if I was a man.
Users posting gender-bending selfies, some even adding inappropriate or sarcastic comments. And for many members of the transgender community, the snaps are not something to joke about.
And for their part, Snapchat issued a statement saying they are working to, quote, ensure that on the whole, these lenses are diverse and inclusive by providing a wide range of transformative effects.
Is your teenager addicted to his or her cell phone?
Social media addiction.
15 years old and a self-professed recovering social media addict.
Shoppers are lining up ready to buy new phones and tablets, but experts want parents to beware of a new growing problem, and that's social media addiction.
Social media has become an addiction. In a world where fitting in is already a top priority for many teens, checking their accounts can become their everything.
They forced David into the Paradigm Malibu rehab facility for 30 days to treat his social media addiction. No cell phones or internet surfing allowed. 50% of teens say they feel addicted to their mobile devices.
I'd sit in my room for days at a time, just kind of curl up and go on social media.
Can't stop. You have to check it every day.
The concept is simple. Hitting 100 or more likes on a Facebook or Instagram post shows your friends how popular you are. Anything less than 100 likes is considered a poor showing. Her friends are feeling the pressure too.
Everyone in school gets around 100 or more.
I don't know, it's just not good to be the only person who doesn't have it.
Who was relieved to report her selfie with our GMA crew got well over 100 likes.
Well, social media has become the new extreme sport. We know that getting 100 likes is now created a competition where the prize is that trophy of getting into that exclusive club where you can feel well liked and popular.
A third of teens said they check social media more than 25 times a day, some as much as 100. They want to see if their posts are getting likes and comments. They want to see if their friends are doing things without them. They wanted to see if someone was saying mean things about them.
And it kind of makes you depressed sometimes. You just want to like lay down and just cry. I always waited and waited and waited for someone to reply. It was like my heart, like I couldn't put it down.
Her parents say it was a knockdown, drag-out fight to get the phone out of her hand.
On Instagram, like I follow people like Kendall Jenner and Kylie Jenner, and they all have this like time measure, like body image that everyone is expecting from this generation. So like
Alicia Soto admits she spends more time on social media than she does anywhere else.
When I get it taken away, I'm like empty without it.
Her hope that one day she can put her phone down and pick it up just a few times a day.
Even former Facebook president Sean Parker, who Justin Timberlake played in the movie The Social Network, says the company was built to be addictive.
That thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. It's a social validation feedback loop because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. Instagram, the Snapchat, or the LinkedIn. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Every picture, every post, every comment.
In the panic following the gunfire at the Gilroy Garlic Festival, thousands wondered what was happening, but only a few had this reaction.
oh man, this is not happening again.
This is Alicia Olive Sunday, escaping a mass shooting in Gilroy. And this is Alicia, October 1st, 2017, escaping the mass shooting at the Route 91 Music Festival in Las Vegas.
Well, for one large group of people inside the club, this was the second narrow escape from a mass shooting. One man said he and others inside the bar also survived the attack that killed 58 people and injured hundreds more in Las Vegas.
It's the second time in about a year and a month that this has happened. I was at the Las Vegas Route 91 mass shooting, as well as probably 50 or 60 others who are in the building at the same time as me tonight.
He has now survived 2 mass shootings just over a year apart. The trauma this 22-year-old man has endured goes so far beyond words. All of this happening just 13 months after Dylan survived the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history last year in Las Vegas.
Have you been able to just wrap your head around that? In just over a year, you survived Las Vegas, you survived last night, but this one was literally down the road from your house.
No, I haven't. The only thing I can contribute to is God.
At the Garlic Festival with 2 friends that she met at a Las Vegas shooting support group. Now all 3 are part of a small group of Americans with a distinction none of them want. They've now survived 2 mass shootings.
After the Vegas shooting, I felt like I would be there again, and it happened.
Right by her side was Chris Cook. Incredibly, this was his second mass shooting as well. After our interview, Alicia and Chris attended a vigil.
I'm angry. Something has to change, and if I have to be the voice of that, then I will. This is not happening again.
It's a website that's been tied to the rise of online extremism, according to experts.
So 8chan.
X-Chan.
8chan.
8chan. 8chan is the online forum.
Online message board, 8chan.
Controversial message board, 8chan. 8chan.
8chan.
The site is called 8chan.
8chan or Infinity Channel.
For so many of these hateful, terroristic thoughts.
The website, which lets users share hateful ideas of white supremacy,
hate, violence, and radicalization.
It's a cesspool for some of the worst elements in our society. And there's other things that could be done. The banks and the financial institutions, which allow dollars to flow into these services, they should shut them down. The hosting companies that put them up online should shut them down. What's new is that it's just a few clicks away, and that's something we can prevent.
To spread their toxic thoughts, anti-Semitic, xenophobic, and racist agendas.
Racist virtual paradise.
There are reports that 8chan has been back online at various times today. At some point, it will likely be available again on a different service provider. Industry leaders say this is a problem for the whole internet, and it's time for more vigilance to stop the hate speech and the violence.
It is just one of many open forums that host hatred. 4chan, Gab, and the neo-Nazi site Daily Stormer are favorites of white supremacists and neo-Nazis.
To spread their poison across the internet and to inspire others.
Last night, Cloudflare dropped 8chan, calling the site lawless and that it caused multiple tragic deaths. And another service provider, Voxility, earlier today also dropped 8chan.
Well, Isabel, as it stands Monday night, 8chan is looking for a new home for new providers to keep the site alive. This is the front page of 8chan. Not much to look at, but you can see here a big disclaimer saying much of the content you'll find on here will be offensive, but please don't post anything illegal. But here, look, they describe themselves as the darkest reaches of the internet. Inarguable that this site has become home to a lot of hate speech, white nationalism, racism, and xenophobia.
Particularly offensive things, racist memes, neo-Nazi propaganda. It has become a real cesspool for hate, and not just a cesspool for hate, but also a place where these communities have been able to organize harassment campaigns and trying to be as offensive as possible. We've seen that kind of become an on-ramp for making jokes, say, about the Holocaust. And once we see these communities able to laugh at something like genocide, that becomes an on-ramp to laughing at other things. And it becomes less about being politically incorrect just for the fun of it, which is a ridiculous concept. But this is what's happening in these spaces. And the lines start to blur, and we see that these actually become communities of indoctrination. When these sites are harder to access, they're harder for people who are looking for this white supremacist messaging and these communities to find each other. And so this deplatforming, this not providing space for these communities to continue actually is effective in limiting their reach.
Look, if you're anything like me, when you woke up this morning, you didn't know the difference between 8chan or 4chan, 2chan, or any other chan, all right? Now, I was hoping we could all go down this rabbit hole together and learn something about this, but since the company lost their cybersecurity protection today, if you try, here they are on Twitter, if you click the link, all you get is this: the site can't be reached.
The ripple effect is already happening. When Voxility, also based in San Francisco, heard that 8chan had found a new service provider, Voxility cut off its security protection as well, and 8chan was again knocked offline.
And so for years, a lot of these websites, these companies said, we are not a media company, we're just a platform. We deliver content to our users. Whatever our users do is their business. And now our experts are saying that the public is not buying that argument. There's more public pressure for these tech companies to do more.
The internet service provider, a company called Cloudflare, has just announced it will stop doing business with 8chan. The company's CEO is slamming the site as lawless, a cesspool. But 8chan will probably pop up again. And when it does, what happens then?
They go down rabbit holes on places like YouTube and Facebook that start in moderate places. You know, they don't start instantly as even political things. People start on things like bodybuilding forums, and then
move down the line, and then a couple weeks later, they are fully ingratiated into the white supremacist 8chan experience.
These extremists keep finding their own special platforms, these, dark corners of the internet to congregate. If it was ISIS, Al-Qaeda a few years ago, we were talking about Telegram. Last year, we were talking about Gab. Now we're talking about 8chan. This pushes them into a more insular, anonymous, dark operation somewhere in the social media landscape, which means more human intelligence, not technical intelligence, is needed.
It's going in on sort of the deep, dark places on the web. We also have the president who, after that Unite the Right, pointedly came out and said there are good people on both sides.
Well, I think there's going to be this growing conversation, Melissa, about what do you do about this kind of content on the internet that incites violence? Who's responsible for that content? And it was interesting because the CEO of Cloudflare actually posted a rather long blog post explaining why they were no longer going to be supporting 8chan, which did temporarily pull down 8chan from the internet. But this CEO of Cloudflare also noted the fact that they did the same thing with another offensive website, the Daily Stormer, when they saw that the Daily Stormer was posting equally offensive content. So they were saying the problem, though, is that the Daily Stormer found another home, and there are going to be other companies that are going to continue to support this kind of violent content or of content that incites violence. And the question, though, is what kind of regulation needs to come in and create real guidelines around that. We've seen Australia and other countries really try to take action around this. But here in the U.S., there still isn't regulation about providing the technology to support this kind of content.
The Cloudflare CEO in that blog post made clear 8chan didn't do anything wrong, but we don't want to do business with them.
Right. And also, by the way, the founder of 8chan said it should be shut down because it's lawless. The larger issue here is we are in the midst of an epidemic of hate speech, of incitement to violence. Here in the U.S., hate speech, it's not illegal. And the problem we have here is that the platforms, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, have absolutely no idea how to deal with this. So they've been doing it in sort of a scattershot manner. Other countries have been much more aggressive than the United States. CNBC actually reported just a few days ago about Germany. Some people are switching their location services to Germany because Germany has much stronger laws against hate speech and Nazism.
I mean, we have got to do something about it, and we can't just do it
I don't disagree
every week.
with you, but the flip side is that they're all sitting there couched in a corner, scared out of their minds that either their customers are going to abandon them or that the political class, which I'm not even sure is going to represent the public in this instance, is going to come after them even worse. And I'm thinking of what happened to Delta with the tax policy in Georgia. I'm thinking of so many other times where it's ultimately in some strange way backfired.
Yeah, but in this particular thing, I think you got to do what's right. I mean, it's insane to have what's going on in this country, and we all should be ashamed of it. We should be marching in the streets on gun violence instead of watching Hong Kong scream about detention and exporting. I'm sorry to harp on it, but I think at the core of it is we've got guns on the street. People who have them that shouldn't have them, and if we're never going to be able to solve it. If we dramatically minimized it, these issues, people will speak out and say things under the First Amendment. They're allowed to say whatever they want, but they won't be able to take the same actions.
The chat board is rife with white supremacist and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories.
But aficionados of these kinds of conspiracy causes, extreme right-wing causes that like to connect in the digital domain and seek one another's approval, seek one another's ideas, seek to communicate.
Earlier this year, for the first time, the federal government published what it said was a comprehensive count based on a survey of every single public school in the United States. But an NPR investigation has found that the actual number may be far lower than the government is reporting. Anya Kamenetz of NPR's Ed Team joins us now to talk about this. Hi, Anya.
Morning, David.
All right, so let's start with the official number from the government that we're dealing with here.
235. The Education Department's Office for Civil Rights asked every school this question, and they actually made it mandatory for the first time last year. They asked, in the 2015-2016 school year, has there been at least one incident at your school that involved a shooting, regardless of whether anyone was hurt? And that included going to and from school and school-sponsored events. And they published the answer this past spring.
Okay, so 235 in one school year, that's like almost one for every school day. Am I right?
Right. So it seemed really high to us. And so the NPR Ed team, this was some intern magic, spent the summer calling around to every single one of those schools. And, David, we confirmed just 11 of the incidents.
That's astonishing. I mean, that's not just like a mistake here or there.
But in 161 of those 235 cases, we did learn districts or schools told us nothing at all happened. And the biggest chunk of those overall was the Cleveland Municipal School District, reporting 37 shootings. Their best guess is that number 37 was placed on the wrong line of the survey.
It's just incredible that you have schools saying nothing at all happened and they're being counted by the federal government as places where there were shootings.
Right. So it's a really important question, and it's the first time that they've asked it. And we heard these same kind of errors all over the place. So in the Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District, among 16 very affluent schools, 4 shootings are listed. And Gail Pinsker, a district spokeswoman, said no one remembers any guns being fired going back 20 plus years, but maybe she says there was a coding mistake.
A student brandishing a pair of scissors.
And somehow that got inflated into a gun going off.
That's okay. So maybe the school is just reporting that an incident happened and it gets counted by the federal government as a gun going off. But I mean, mistakes happen, but these are important mistakes.
Why are we not eating insects?
We're just wimpy here, I guess, right? Why aren't we eating insects? I mean, what's the cultural reason? We just have the creepy crawlies?
It's a little bit weird, sometimes those exoskeletons are creepy, and if you get a leg stuck in your teeth, it's crunchy. We love crunchy. It's got sort of a smoky, musky flavor. Well, we love that. And so there's not really any good excuse that I could come up with for not liking bugs.
Well, let's go eat some bugs.
All right.
Do they wear cowboy hats and ride horses at Cricket Farm?
Oh, outrageous. It's called micro farming.
All right, well, environmentalists are reminding diners that eating bugs is great for the planet. In honor of Earth Day, some New York chefs cooked up some edible insects, as you can see there. Yummy.
Meet the palate pioneers. These creepy, crawly converts may just have the future of food in the palm of their hands.
Our time has come.
Bugs are definitely the future.
And this is what they hope to cash in on, what they're calling the gateway bug.
About 2 billion people around the world supplement their diet with insects. Now a new report says creepy crawlies could help avoid a potential global food crisis.
Most cultures actually think of comfort foods like grasshoppers or caterpillars or ants or termites. You pull off a leg, and actually there's nice meat in the thigh if you have the legs on there. You can put the whole thing in your mouth and chomp away. I personally like crunching their heads. 1, 2, 3, eat it! Eat it! Eat it! Some things like cockroaches have little parasites in them. I gotta tell you, this is my favorite bug meal. Beautiful western brown tarantula spiders. And it's a perfect holiday gift.
Our mission is to raise awareness and appreciation for edible insects through delicious, creative, and educational programming. What we need to address that is a drastic shift in perception from insects as pests to edible insects, something that is delicious. And it's like, help me think of new words when you're sitting around with your friends, and if you're over 21 and you're having a drink, you're like, let's try to think of a new word for crickets for entomophagy. Let's try to think of a new term for eating insects besides what's that word again? And you guys can really start helping us. We have some yummy popcorn with some gusano worm salt.
They are pushing insects as a mainstream food of the future. Here, these are chips, but they're made with insects?
Yes, specifically crickets.
Okay, they look like regular chips, they taste like regular chips. Tell me how chip technology and cricket technology become one.
If we can get people to start eating more insects and less animal protein, then really the world would be a better place. Let's back up. Right, there we go. So basically how this all started was I was an African studies major in college, and I was studying abroad in Tanzania, and I met this woman selling fried caterpillars on the side of the street. Put it in my mouth before I could think too much about how it looked, and when I bit down, my first thought was, wow, this tastes like lobster.
Wow.
Which actually makes sense because insects and crustaceans are closely related. Where someone dared me to eat a fried scorpion. And so I had the same reaction that Laura did, which is, oh my gosh, this tastes like shrimp.
Insects. Then the idea of putting it inside a vending machine was a way to try and normalize it a bit more.
are far more sustainable, they're easy to farm, they don't need much water source, and in comparison to like farming cattle and sort of live foods, they're just far more easier to
make far more sense.
Yeah.
They're also really good for us as well, so they have loads of protein.
And they actually taste fine.
Mexicans enjoy chili toasted grasshoppers. Thais tuck into cricket stir fries, and Ghanaians snack on termites.
Chili pepper seasoned crickets, even scorpions.
Scorpions still have the stingers in them.
So someday soon, you might be chowing down on this sandwich with mealworm garnish, then washing that down with a frosty beverage topped with crunchy crickets.
These string potatoes aren't complete without adding some dried ants.
Barbecue roasted cricket. That's buffalo worms. Buffalo worm protein powder. Breakfast. Barbecue mealworms. Granola. With buffalo worms. Greek spiced grasshoppers. High protein pasta. Cricket flour. Belgian milk chocolate covered cricket.
Buffalo mealworm pasta. Topped with tomato sauce, crickets, buffalo worms, and my nemesis, the grasshopper.
We have to fundamentally change our diets if we're going to really take hold of this climate change problem.
It's good. I like it.
It's not
I actually
bad.
like it.
It's tasty.
I think anyone would like these. Anyone.
I believe that edible insects will be widely accepted and normalized in America within 5 to 10 years.
The OK hand gesture is now a hate symbol.
The OK hand gesture, thought to be a symbol of everything's okay, is now considered a hate symbol by the Anti-Defamation League. It was one of 36 the ADL added to its list.
The OK sign and the bowl haircut style. The ADL says extremists are claiming both of those symbols.
And that is obscuring their original innocent meanings.
But this simple hand gesture has now become a symbol of white supremacy.
New symbols recently added include the OK hand gesture, a mass killer's bowl-style haircut, and an anthropomorphic moon wearing sunglasses.
People began to think that if you made the OK, this looks like white power. And when that did happen, it started to catch on.
It's how that gesture is used that represents hate. Now people say they'll keep an eye out for the symbol.
People can hijack certain signs that had an original meaning beforehand and try to give it a new intended meaning.
The gesture has some even wondering when it is appropriate to use, like in sign language and emojis, and when it isn't.
I don't think the spirit behind the symbols is new. Like, it's just giving people a way to be vocal without being seen.
And this year, the ADL says that OK hand gesture was actually adopted by some white nationalists.
The civil rights group says many of the newly added symbols were adopted by the alt-right segment of the white supremacist movement, with several of them appearing frequently on internet message boards.
36 new symbols are being added to the Hate on Display database. It's an online tool for groups to recognize signs of extremist activity. The database says these are all hate symbols used by white supremacists and far-right extremists. The Anti-Defamation League says it added the OK symbol because it looks like a hand forms a W and a P. Now extremists are using it as a sincere expression of white supremacy.
Hate symbols used by white supremacists and other far-right extremists. The OK hand gesture, the Dylan Roof bowl cut hairstyle, and an anthropomorphic moon wearing sunglasses.
Other symbols were also added. One of them is the happy merchant, which is apparently an image of a derogatory image of a Jewish man, and also the moon man. Yeah, this moon man. When that clock strikes. What the heck? I swear, racists ruin everything.
The OK gesture, the ADL says, has now been used in fringe white supremacy groups to mean not okay, but white power. And bowl-shaped haircuts, once just an embarrassing childhood fashion style, now emboldened into a white supremacist image, the group says.
As more extremists are using it, it's important for law enforcement, it's important for the public to know
that it's now been adapted.
The OK hand gesture and bowl cuts, once a fashion statement, now considered symbols of hate, added to the Anti-Defamation League's 20-year-old list among swastikas and burning crosses.
Hate is always adapting to the current environment, so we need to be on top of it, and that's why we update the database regularly.
Some people on the street had heard of the OK sign turned white power symbol before.
I knew about this one.
You did know about that one?
Yeah, have been cautious to use it for that reason. Don't want to make anyone offended.
It was on the news about it having some relationship to white supremacy.
But they were shocked to learn about the bowl cut, and many tell us they'll look at things differently now.
I would think about it now that I know, yeah. Because what if it's just something I was ignorant about?
The ADL says it uses this list and the symbols on it to actually train local police departments and help them solve crimes.
And how do you shut it down, or who should shut it down?
The goal, prevent another 2016.
You have no place on our platforms.
Who wants to be a drag queen when they grow up?
For undocumented women, for our LGBTQIA communities.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Control exactly what people think, and that is our job.
Yeah.
If you can switch genders, can you switch races?
You know, the good thing about science is that it's true whether or not you believe in it. You see, that's the. I'm just saying.
Teenagers are putting detergent pods in their mouths.
As of 3 weeks ago, the Boy Scouts of America are admitting girls.
PETA has declared milk a symbol of white supremacy.
Internet trolls.
Misinformation attacks attempting to sway your vote.
Weaponized fake news.
And then it brings up all of these different ways to report hate speech.
To detect bad actors.
Now that might be surfacing an article from fact checkers.
Internet disinformation campaigns.
15 schools were ordered to give up their feathers and war paint by 2017 or potentially lose state funding.
There is another Russian-funded operation.
Amplify and spread content that is divisive in our society.
You know, fake news, conspiracy theories.
It is Control-Alt-Delete recommendations of the ADL task force on the online harassment of journalists.
I mean, what's your thought on jailing skeptics as war criminals?
Well, we'll see what happens.
Join me in supporting the committee to protect journalists, because we're going to need them going forward, and they'll need us to safeguard the truth.
It's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us.
From us.
Here at Wrigley Field last night, when the fan sitting right behind him made a hand gesture that has been associated with white supremacy. Here's a look.
Especially when you think back and look back the last 7 days.
The person responsible for that gesture will never be welcome back at Wrigley Field.
The fan makes a hand gesture associated with racism.
The incident last night is, truly disgusting. I think, it gave me shivers to watch that, that would take place at Wrigley Field. We've made clear how egregious and unacceptable that behavior is, and there's no place for it in our society, in baseball, and certainly no place at Wrigley Field.
But after an investigation, the team says it violated the guest code of conduct.
This is a place of inclusion. This is a place of connectedness. We are a welcoming organization.
They're calling this gesture ignorant and repulsive. Now, the fan behind him made the gesture that we've blurred out because it's just not appropriate and really offensive. It's a hand symbol often used by white supremacists.
Is reprehensible, it's ignorant, and it's not welcome at our ballpark.
This morning, the Cubs are also saying that any fan, or really anyone in the ballpark who does something like this, will not only be removed, but they'll be permanently banned from Wrigley Field.
After the game, Doug Glanville posted a statement on Twitter saying, in part, "I applaud the responsiveness of both the Chicago Cubs organization and NBC Sports in investigating this matter. They have displayed sensitivity as to how the implications of this would affect me as a person of color."
But look at the intern in the back row.
He's making a hand gesture that's quite different than any of the others. To some, it appears to symbolize white power. The white power signal is made with the right hand and outstretched fingers that make a W and P, as in white power. But notice this kid in the front row. He appears to be making the white power sign.
And they're doing it because they're trying to show white power. And I'll give you an example of what that means. This is a W, right? You put your fingers up like this, and this could be a P, right? What they're trying to say is, yes, actually we are affirming white power, but it is also a secret hand sign that are used amongst each other to affirm that they are white supremacists or white nationalists or members of the alt-right.
The accused gunman in the New Zealand mosque attacks bringing attention to a particular symbol of hate. The suspect appeared to flash a hand sign that traditionally means okay, but has increasingly been adopted by white supremacists and neo-Nazis.
It appeared that she was sitting in a way that, for some reason, her hands formed the white supremacy symbol. That is the sort of the okay with the three fingers flared out for white. You know, they have a secret handshake because that's the way you do when you're a white supremacist.
Whatever it was, that's
right,
a key word.
Whatever it was to you is not what it is.
Not so much anymore.
Now, it's been co-opted. It then took on another level of meaning even beyond that when it was actually adopted as a white power symbol, as a white supremacist code. That is what it is now.
But in the deep, dark recesses of the internet, on places that you just shouldn't go and read about things, this symbol, by some, has been used as a code word, essentially, as the secret password into the door, so that those who have these ideals can throw it up on national television.
You will be chipped. It's just a matter of time. A small firm recently embedded microchips in their employees as a way to bypass company badges and corporate logons. It's going to be a while, but you will be chipped.
If you have some photos from your childhood home, we can now use computer vision to fill in the gaps with this pointillism effect and recreate the rooms of your childhood home where you grew up.
Would you take a course on Beyonce? It is happening at the University of Illinois at Chicago.
And already there's a next generation selfie stick. Introducing the selfie arm.
It's really a news source for a lot of millennials. I check Snapchat first thing in the morning. I read the Daily Mail. That's how I get my #1 source of news.
Then you make up words like zaddy. I didn't know what a zaddy was.
You didn't know what a zaddy was?
Zaddy is?
John, did you know?
Even though they work with one.
Abolishing ICE shouldn't be controversial.
But if you want to talk about violence and you want to pretend as if both sides are equal in carrying out acts of violence, you're wrong. And you've bought into what these bots are putting out there, right? Yeah. Oh, so you said that it was a white guy. What happened?
And that is what Russian Twitter bots do. So they were, for example, resharing articles that question studies about the importance of gun control. They were basically taking a radical pro-gun position in this debate. It's disgusting. Russian bots getting in to inflame us after a high school shooting. It's one of those things you read about and you think, oh my God, how can this be happening?
We work with Google on using AI to try to interrupt cyber hate before it happens. We work with YouTube to get them to change their algorithms. We work with Facebook on trying to use a redirect method, so when you search for Holocaust as a hoax, you get directed to like a Yad Vashem page.
Today we are discussing whether the Indian Simpsons character Apu is racist.
And even offered emergency counseling in response to complaints from some Emory students who said they felt intimidated and unsafe following the appearance on campus of Trump 2016 messages scrawled in chalk.
This president has radicalized so many more people than ISIS ever did.
We're changing the paradigm that we are not the problem. The problem is that our world doesn't accommodate a diversity of bodies. So that's what we need to change, not so much changing who we are and changing our body, but instead changing society.
The EU hopes these tech companies work not just to fight hate speech, but also combat fake news online.
Okay. Well, I think it's a very nuanced argument you're making. I actually respectfully disagree with a lot of your points. One thing that stuck out to me is your context that you draw racial hoaxers, as you call them. And I think that's kind of dangerous to put out these days. Obviously, you can probably recount 3 or 4 incidents that were proven to be false, but then you think about the long list of things that actually happened.
Investigating after hateful messages were found at an elementary school in Queens. The messages, along with dozens of swastikas, were drawn in chalk at the playground. The NYPD Hate Crimes Task Force is now looking into the incident.
If you live in America, you've participated and enabled white supremacy, whether you like it or not.
5 UN Sustainable Development Goals, including gender equality, were weaved into storylines with the help of Tululupe Louis Timoka of UN Women.
There's stereotypes out there around the role that a girl should play and different from that a boy should play. But through the character Nia, we're able to simplify it by showing that, a female engine has skills and abilities and could actually get the job done just like a male engine.
A new study found that everyone is bisexual. Check it out.
One Florida family raising a gender-neutral child.
Instead of a boy or a girl, gender-neutral babies are known as phabies. Phabies are babies without a known sex. That means only parents and trusted caregivers know that baby's anatomy.
But the force received complaints that his online activity was deeply offensive to the transgender community.
Predictive technologies, again, to block the trolls. But the behavior is very, very damaging. They make money, and they need to put that money back into strong moderation.
When police killed an unarmed African-American male, the mental health of the entire African-American population in that state is adversely affected for the next 3 months.
We've all been socialized to be racists. And I think it's particularly an issue in schools because 80% of the school of teachers are white women.
Twerking is a dance fad. High school kids love it. Of course they do. Miley Cyrus does it. You can even find how-to videos online.
And you're gonna go boom, 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 boom.
Overall, it's pop culture. Emily's mom told me the moves in the students' video reminds her of the moves in this video, Dirty Dancing. And the school's administrator, she says, is like the prudish, overbearing father.
If there's one demographic President Trump hasn't put a spell on, it's witches. They'd rather put a spell on him.
ESPN firing the sportscaster after the former number 38 shared this meme on social media, referencing the recent North Carolina law barring transgender people from using bathrooms or locker rooms which don't correspond with the gender on their birth certificate. He added his own commentary to the post, writing, "A man is a man no matter what they call themselves. Now you need laws telling us differently? Pathetic." ESPN put out a statement saying ESPN is an inclusive company. His conduct was unacceptable.
Today, we're taking our comment filtering technology even further by launching a bullying filter that hides language intended to harass or upset people.
Literally just for some period before an election so that we could track where information comes from. Did it originate in a 4chan conversation? Did it travel through Breitbart before it made it to Twitter? And then ultimately into the mainstream media. I don't want to censor any of it, but what if we could just know where it came from?
First, eliminating toxic comments, a feature that launched this summer. And then second, elevating nice comments, which will roll out later this year.
Well, the process is built, right? So the way the system learned is 20 humans sat in a room, they read through thousands and thousands of comments, they said toxic, not toxic, toxic, not toxic. They then put all those ratings into the machines, which then came up with a set of rules. Those rules now serve as the filters on Instagram, cleaning it up.
Racist messages on the dating app Tinder. Those comments were allegedly sent to her by a student at Bridgewater State University.
Bridgewater State did not say whether the student will be allowed to return to the university while this investigation is being conducted.
Have you ever had an LGBTQ law clerk?
I heard through the announcements saying like, oh, there's a lockdown happening, so everybody lock your rooms and all that type of stuff.
Police and school officials say the firestorm erupted over the weekend with a series of racist social media posts.
A look at this video showing this billboard that's up in our area. That message has upset some people.
I'm a member of HRC's Parents for Transgender Equality Council and the proud parent of a transgender 8-year-old boy living here in Massachusetts.
Well, when I had a substitute, sometimes I had to educate. Like one time when the substitute called me a boy. I even had some friends stick up for me. They were like, she's a girl.
And it's kind of weird, you know, when we have to educate the folks who are supposed to educate us.
What happened Saturday behind the scenes at GoDaddy that led you to pull this site and make this announcement Sunday evening?
We always have to ride the fence on top of making sure that we are protecting a free and open internet, and certainly First Amendment rights matter, not just in speech but on the internet as well. But when the line gets crossed and that speech starts to incite violence, then we have a responsibility to take that down. And clearly, with the events that happened in Charlottesville, we felt the Daily Stormer went too far, crossed the line. We decided, look, we're going to take this down. We don't think it has any business being on the internet, so we gave 24 hours notice to the Daily Stormer to move their site somewhere else.
Why host a site to begin with that promotes anti-Semitism, neo-Nazism, and white nationalism?
Well, you know, I understand that position. Still, you know, First Amendment rights protect people's ability to represent their beliefs. And again, it's a very fine line between making sure we're not being a censor and making sure we're acting in a responsible manner that will take it down.
But again, it feels wrong to consumers. It feels wrong if your browser is making decisions about what content can and cannot be online. And if we chain together a whole bunch of different entities, all of which are making slightly different moral decisions, the risk is that we collapse the internet to what is the lowest common denominator. And again, I think that's a real risk, and that's something that we need to be aware of and we need to think through. But we have to think about what's the consequence if we let every link in the chain make that decision on what is and what is not allowed content. If you've never heard of Cloudflare before and you hear that we are choosing what content you can and cannot see online, does that make you feel good or bad? Again, I think it's similar to if I said, you know, the laptop that you were using is not going to let you go to some sites, but it will let you go to others, and that's made by the decision of the manufacturer of that laptop.
Now other tech companies are following GoDaddy's lead and pulling the plug on the Daily Stormer. Daily Stormer's YouTube channel has been removed and their Twitter accounts has been deactivated for violating community guidelines. Finally! Wow, it really took that long, didn't it? At DocFang tweets, thanks YouTube for standing up to white supremacists at Daily Stormer. You are on the right side of history and I will remain loyal customer. So what's your take on the shutdown of Daily Stormer and who's next? Let us know in the comments below.
A white nationalist website sparked controversy in the wake of the violence in Charlottesville last weekend after it published a hate-filled article about one of the victims.
This is something that we've seen kind of a groundswell in over the past year when you had especially consumer-facing social media sites like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram come to grips with the fact that they really had to address this in a more direct way because their consumers were being harassed online. And you've seen a more direct approach from them. And now it's moving into these more backbone companies like the actual domain name registrars and the people hosting the websites rather than just social media companies taking aim at individual members. Oh, I mean, 100%. When you have voices coming up very loudly and saying to a company, you're doing business with this organization and this website, you need to look more closely at that. When you have a big incident like this, that gives it the publicity it needs for the company to go in and say, oh, maybe we should have noticed these guys on our own, but we didn't. Now that it's been brought to our attention, we'll address this. But that does bring up the issue of how much policing a technology company can do and should do. You see companies, especially like Facebook, like YouTube, which is owned by Google, investing a tremendous amount of money recently in developing automated systems and hiring many human watchers to go through what's happening on their networks to try to filter out objectionable material.
One of my fellow employees came up to me the day that we took it offline and said, hey, is this the day the internet dies? The question is this hypocritical? Yes.
I don't care if it's a certain set of princesses in compromising situations. Until a legitimate court organization actually says you have an obligation to take this site down, then that's what we're going to follow. And that's the consistent policy that we have.
Fuck them. They're off the internet.
What we really wanted to avoid was, just in the same way we don't want to determine who's bad, and we don't think it's appropriate for us to determine who's bad, we also don't want to be the organization that's determining who's good.
Fuck them. They're off the internet.
And so when we get criticism for sites which are on our network, what I hope that you'll bear in mind, because undoubtedly there is something that uses our network that you hate. What I hope you'll bear in mind is that the stakes in this are higher than you think. If we had made determinations of kicking things off before, it would have been much more difficult to have the position that we are actually just this neutral third party. And the minute that we start down that path, there is a slippery slope to a place where we are the ones making that determination on what is good and what is bad. And so instead, what we think of ourselves again as is Switzerland. We think of ourselves as that neutral party. And nobody really likes the Swiss, but they respect them. And I hope that that's kind of the place that we're at as well.
Fuck them. They're off the internet.
That we really didn't think that it was our position to be an internet censor. We didn't want to choose, was this good content or bad content?
Fuck them. They're off the internet.
Because, again, we shouldn't be determining what is allowed and not allowed.
Fuck them. They're off the internet.
Fuck them. They're off the internet.
There was a policy change. I think they all sort of happened at the same time. Can we just walk through what happened and if they're parallel tracks or they happened at the same, if they were connected?
But I do want to start because I know that the decision that we made was very hurtful to the LGBTQ community, and that was not our intention at all. And we made this past week, we made a change in how we handle hate speech. And that took months and months of work and hundreds of people we had working on that. And that was a very significant launch and a really important one. And what we did with that launch is we made a couple big changes. One of them was to make it so that if there's a video that alleges that some race or religion or gender or group, protected group, is superior in some way and uses that to justify discrimination or exclusion, that would now no longer be allowed on our platform. I think a really important is, we committed, we will take a look at this and we will work to change the policies here. So we have a higher standard for monetization. So then we did announce the monetization change that Steven Crowder his monetization.
So was that in reaction to people reacting to you not reacting, or was that something that you were already planning to do and just hadn't got around to announcing?
No, we were in the process of looking at that. And when we look at these accounts, there are many different components that we look at, and that's actually why we put the line. There are other avenues that we're still looking at. And that might have been too subtle. If I were to do it again, I would put it all into one.
Do it in one go.
Yeah, I would do it all in one go.
So we're not kicking you off, but we're not going to help you make money on YouTube.
We're suspending monetization.
If I ran a business for people dumping that much sludge onto my property on a quarterly basis, I would really rethink what I'm doing. And it seems like, I just can't fathom why there's 8 million pieces of terrible things coming onto your site on a quarterly basis, but that would really upset me and worry me. What if YouTube wasn't open? What if I couldn't upload a video that I wanted to without asking you for permission? What would that do to YouTube? What if you had some sort of barrier to entry that required me to get some kind of permission to upload something before it went up there?
Having more trusted tiers. In a sense, we've already started doing that with monetization, saying, look, you can't just come onto the platform and have monetization on day one. You have to have a certain number of views, you have to have a certain number of hours, you have to be in good standing. And so that's an example of where we have more of a trusted relationship with them. So we think, we do the similar thing with live streams in terms of certain number of views that you have to have, subscribers that you need to have. So I think this idea of not everything is automatically given to you on day one, that it's more of a, we have trusted tiers.
insistence that the platform has to be open. I can think of a business reason for that. I can think of legal reasons for that, right? Section 230 gives you legal protections, but you have to not actually prevent someone from uploading something. And I can think of ideological reasons why you want the platform to be open. Which one is most important to you?
How are you deciding who is getting to be on the platform and have speech and who's not?
But you are deciding fundamentally, right? You have teams and you have software and you weigh in. You are fundamentally making a decision at some point.
We do, but that's after they've been on the platform and we have an understanding of what they're doing. It's based on the content that people have uploaded.
But there is a world, right, where people make those decisions all the time. The traditional media does this. The New York Times or NBC or Fox knows what's on their website because they said, yes, let's publish this. Let's distribute this. You guys don't know. That would make me just fundamentally nervous to be running a platform with 2 billion people on it. I don't know what's happening on it. BuzzFeed wrote about a creator with some popularity who'd made a series of problematic videos. I hate that I just use the word problematic. Of offensive videos, and one of them was a death threat aimed at you. You took down that video, another video. Her channel is still up, which brings me back to this sort of whack-a-mole where you guys are sort of sifting through videos as they come to your attention and saying, this one's a problem, this one is okay, this one threatened to kill me, but she can still stay on the site. How do you feel about having, her name is Soph. How do you feel about having her on YouTube?
So let me, like I mentioned beforehand, every single time there is a controversial video, you really need to see the video and you need to understand what's happening. And she, has a large amount of political satire and political speech that's in her channel. The video where she made the threat to me was struck. And we removed monetization from her channel because, like I said, we have a higher bar for monetization, and that was an issue. Look, I think there's certainly different levels of threats in the videos and different ways that we would interpret it depending upon the context of who is the person and what they're saying. And in many cases, we would terminate the channel if we thought it was a channel that was dedicated to a number of, hateful harassment, et cetera. But in this case, it was a large amount of political speech. And so seeing it in context, we struck the video, removed monetization, but left the rest of the channel up. I think like any company, we use multiple metrics to evaluate our success. And so we have at the, sort of the top of our pyramid, quality and responsibility right now. Look, there's some standards like how we handle harassment or how we handle hate that applies to everyone. But what I'm trying to say is that if you're in the news category and you're producing misinformation, we're gonna, there could be a set of cases that really only relate to news. And so I'm just saying that we're trying to understand how to cover everything across from a policy standpoint. But when we identify, look, there's a problem over here, it's specific to this area, specific to this industry, we're also going to look and say, well, what policy should we make that will really affect this?
Yep, Ina Fried with Axios. You started off with an apology to the LGBTQ community, but then you also said that you were involved and that you think YouTube made the right call. A lot of people don't really feel like that's an apology and are concerned that YouTube flags LGBT positive content just for being LGBT as sometimes, sensitive, and yet slurs are allowed. And I'm curious, are you really sorry for anything to the LGBTQ community, or are you just sorry that they were offended?
So first of all, I'm really personally very sorry, and it was not our intent. Our goal was, YouTube has always been a home of so many LGBTQ creators, and that's why it was so emotional, and that's why I think this really, that's why, even though it was a hard decision, it was made harder than it came from us because we've been such an important home. And I am truly, truly sorry for the hurt that we caused that community. It was not our intention at all. And
do you think YouTube is having a radicalizing effect on our politics?
Right, so when people go and they look up one topic, whether it's politics or religion or knitting, like we're going to offer a variety of other content associated with it. But we have taken this radicalization concerns very seriously, and that's why at the beginning of January, we introduced some new changes in terms of how we handle recommendations. And I know you're familiar with them, you referenced them, but what we do for background for the other people is that we basically have an understanding of what's a content that's borderline. And when that content is borderline, we determine that based on a series of different raters that we use that are representative of different people across the U.S. And when we determine that, we're able to build a set of understanding of what's considered borderline content and then reduce our recommendations. So we have reduced by 50% the recommendations that we're making of borderline content. And we're planning to roll that out to all countries to 20 more countries this rest of the year.
Restate Kevin's question,
Yeah.
do you think YouTube helps radicalize people, particularly on the right?
It's like, you've done lots and lots of research on this. Our view has been that we are offering a diverse set of content to our users, and that, users, we're providing that diverse set, and, users will, choose different types of content for them to see, but we see that we're offering a diverse set over time. But all the same, like, we really want to be able to address it, and that's why we've made the changes that we have made.
We could do this double length, but we don't have time. Susan, thank you for coming.
Sure.
Thank you for taking my questions.
Thank you.
How do you train students and teachers to prepare for a school shooter? Well, often by pretending there actually is one. These drills may help, but the drama can be intense, even if it's all an act.
I'm gonna kill everybody! Nobody's getting out of here! It's every parent's worst nightmare, an active shooter on campus. The school there held a drill without warning in which police officers showed up on campus, weapons drawn. What? Nobody's getting out! Threatening to kill innocent kids. In this case, just a drill, but a terrifyingly realistic drill. So in school districts across the country, lockdown drills are now as common as fire drills. Some go as far as covering students in fake blood and recruiting volunteers to play dead in the hallways, all in an effort to make the drills more realistic.
Do you worry that this scares students?
We do, but we practice enough that we hope that the students are as staff is, getting used to the idea. We have to.
It's kind of scary, huh?
Kind of, yeah. The kids huddle quietly under the teacher's desk.
Do you know why they do this drill?
Seventh grader Lauren Marino and her siblings frantically texted their mom. Police came in with guns, and I'm kind of scared.
We actually thought someone was going to come in here and kill us.
Their mom was scared too.
Well, I'm panicking because I'm thinking that it's, a legitimate shooter is coming.
Xavier Tate was scared too. His dad raced to the school, unaware it was only a drill.
My husband almost got a ticket coming over here yesterday. He was doing 130.
The school has now apologized to the parents, and the local police chief now says officers won't use weapons in future drills, but the school will continue to hold unannounced lockdowns.
Attention, this is a drill. We need to lock down.
A modern version of duck and cover.
Many of these kids have been going through drills like this since kindergarten, but their parents have never actually seen one.
Boys, I need you to clear this table. Make sure you have something in your hand to bring with you.
Who here is scared when they go through these drills? Elijah, why are you scared?
I'm scared because if something actually really happens, it could hurt me or any one of my friends.
Yeah, as watching this, I felt very emotional, seeing what their real reality is day to day.
It's very emotional.
I saw you crying a little as you were witnessing.
Just knowing that this is her reality, this is our nation's students' reality, and
you know, that we have to have these discussions of why we're doing this.
And guys, I just want to say one last thing before we wrap this up. This training is constantly evolving. And later this year, these kids will learn what to do should their teacher become incapacitated.
Even though we all knew it was a drill, it was very unsettling to see these kids this little having to barricade themselves and grab weapons, which are pencils and books, to protect themselves. It's very disturbing to see.
For one final exercise, the teachers do their normal duck and cover drill and see how they're sitting ducks. Then everyone gets something to throw. In this case, a tennis ball, but in real life, it might well be a hole punch or a desk chair or a dictionary. This time, when the active shooter comes in, he suddenly finds he's the sitting duck. Would it work like this if the bullets were real, or if this were a class full of kids, not teachers? A scene like this could feel terrifyingly real and leave behind a lasting impression.
Controversial signs are popping up in Winchester about Muslim women that are causing confusion and outrage.
But now the debate has been sparked here in Winchester. Are these free speech or hate speech?
It says Islam is right about women.
They read Islam is right about women.
It's unclear who they target, women or Islam.
This is one of about a dozen signs found here in Winchester. People we talk to say they don't even know what it means.
The sign itself is confusing. It's subject to interpretation.
I really don't know because everybody has their own opinion and I respect it. Everybody's entitled to say whatever they want.
Nita Davison says she spotted this flyer Wednesday morning on Main Street in Winchester Center. It says Islam is right about women.
I tore the first one down, and then when I saw a second one, I decided to bring it to the police department here.
People in town say they think the signs are referring to strict laws applied to women.
I think that putting signs up that make people feel uncomfortable is unfortunate, particularly in this time and age.
I asked the cop, if you caught me posting a sign like that on one of these poles, would you arrest me? The officer said it's complicated. Technically, it's illegal to post signs like that, any signs on street poles, but it's hard to enforce. And because of freedom of speech and because that post wasn't threatening, it'd be similar to posting a photo of your missing cat.
I assume it's negative. That's not cool. It's not a cool thing to do.
When she saw these signs in Winchester Center, she ripped them down, took them to police, and alerted social media.
Islam is right about women? What?
For women, the message is insulting and unnerving.
I think it's disgusting. It's unsettling. It's a somewhat of a misconception that, like, Islam, I guess, hates women.
It's either about women, it's either about Islam, it's about both. I'm not really sure what point they were trying to make, but either way, it was terrible.
That kind of sign is very upsetting to anyone with either an Islamic background or for many women.
The Winchester Multicultural Network also now aware, saying to whoever did it,
I think it's short-sighted. I think it's unfortunate. I don't know that you've gained anything that you wanted.
So it's unclear if this was just a prank or if a law was broken.
Being a scientist does not mean you are not a human being. And it's amazing how much in the public this is perceived this way. It's actually kind of disheartening to me. I mean, sometimes I will be talking to somebody who's talking about climate change, and they'll accuse scientists of this conspiracy and this great lie that's being perpetuated about climate change. And I'm sitting there right with this person, and I'm like, are you calling me a liar? You know, do you understand there is a person here? And sometimes you just got to say, what the fuck are you talking about? And if you ever see me on television or giving a talk and I look very confident, maybe even I look arrogant to you, I've been accused of that many times. Just so you know, it's absolutely all an act.
It's absolutely all an act.
That narrative and that storytelling was what I thought a scientist was. There's me getting my doctorate. You can see the diversity of my PhD committee. They were, you know, I mean, this is, we'll talk a bit about diversity and a bit about feminism and women. When I give a talk, you know, I have this need for approval. I have this need to rip out a piece of my soul and say, please approve this. Please think I'm okay. And it's the same thing that actors have and that comedians have. You can kind of sense they need you, right? The idea that that person had some hole inside them they were trying to fill with all this brilliance and all this energy, but you could feel the interior wasn't complete. All of this wonderful detail that we have as scientists isn't getting into people's minds right now. And I'm really sick of this fake news stuff and the scientific conspiracy stuff. I'm angry. The facts are there, and they are real.
It's absolutely all an act.
And sometimes you just got to say, what the fuck are you talking about?
What I'm saying is the planet's on fucking fire. Grow the fuck up. You're not children anymore. I didn't mind explaining photosynthesis to you when you were 12, but you're adults now, and this is an actual crisis. Got it? Safety glasses off, motherfuckers. I don't think there's any consciousness or soul or awareness that exists outside of our physical brains.
You know, the only ist I am is a scientist.
A massive change is underway at YouTube, and the debate of hate speech versus free speech is over.
YouTube says it's cracking down on hate speech and Holocaust deniers.
YouTube will purge its service of hundreds of thousands of videos and channels. It will also get rid of videos that deny events like the Holocaust and Sandy Hook massacre.
To all the Nazi sympathizers, white supremacists, flat earthers, and Holocaust deniers, your days on YouTube are numbered. With this announcement in their official blog, quote, "Today we're taking another step in our hate speech policy by specifically prohibiting videos alleging that a group is superior in order to justify discrimination, segregation, or exclusion based on qualities like age, gender, race, caste, religion, sexual orientation, or veteran status." Previously, YouTube only reduced their view count but still left the videos up. Today, they are mostly gone. YouTube is also taking aim at so-called borderline content, videos that spread mistruths. The company is limiting recommendations to these videos and again is promoting authoritative content like news reports and documentaries about them.
YouTube has tried to play catch up. Okay, we're going to eliminate advertising on those types of videos. We're going to make it harder for those types of creators to be able to share things more often. People that are calling out individual groups, saying that one group is less than another. We saw last week a Vox journalist was targeted by someone that Google and YouTube said, we don't need to take this person down. They're not violating our policies. Well, after enough outcry, they finally did. So really what the content problems come down to on YouTube is people doing bad stuff. Google's AI machines are not catching it. And that's where their policies have to be a little bit more strict. They'll figure out a way to post a video that's just on that borderline so it doesn't necessarily violate the rules, but still, in context, it's really bad. And so that's where Google is really struggling. It's where Facebook is struggling too, this borderline content issue. And so people will say, well, hey, before you just take down my video, why can't you tell me what that borderline is so I know not to go near it? And Google's response, Facebook's too, is, but if we tell the world how our algorithm works, then the world is going to try to beat it. Right. So they're in a very difficult position when it comes to trying to filter out some of this really harmful stuff.
But the thing we are trying to do is to bring more authoritative sources and fact checks on videos which may be controversial.
We've committed to having, last year we committed to having over 10,000 people who are working on controversial content. And so I see how much progress that we have already made. We actually have just made changes to our recommendation algorithms as well for not violative content, but borderline content.
And so we're bringing that same notion and approach to YouTube so that we can rank higher quality stuff better and really prevent borderline content which doesn't exactly violate policies which need to be removed, but which can still cause harm.
YouTube, in these policy changes, at this point has not taken down these videos containing homophobic and racist slurs, for example, against a journalist at Vox. I know you've demonetized them, and you're talking about how you're going to handle them. What are the chances that you remove those videos? Sort of deciding what speech is okay and what's not?
It is definitely one of the hardest things, and in some ways, companies alone aren't fully equipped to handle problems like that because and so I think there is a lot of work ahead, and so I think these conversations are important, but all of us are figuring out how to do it better.
So when YouTube announced these new rules that it would take down these videos, that included taking down all of those horrible conspiracy theory videos denying the Sandy Hook massacre. All right, I'd like to talk about the election and election security for the sake of the democracy. Is it these deep fake videos?
There could be new ways in which misinformation gets disseminated. We are worried about both shallow fakes and deep fakes, and You don't necessarily need to have deep fakes. You can manipulate videos in many ways, and so it's something we're very concerned about. We are very committed. This is what we do as a company. We provide accurate and trusted and relevant information, and our commitment to approach our work in a nonpartisan way.
Let's talk about the spread of disinformation and hate on YouTube as well. So from anti-Semitism to harassment of LGBTQ individuals, conspiracy theory videos about the Parkland shooting or Sandy Hook. Where do you draw the line with YouTube between hate and free speech?
It's a line we work hard to get right, and every few years we feel the need to evolve them because we see changes in how the platform is getting used. Just last week we had significant revisions to our hate speech policy. At YouTube, we are very focused on removing harmful content and reducing the spread of what we think of as borderline content. Just last quarter, we removed over 9 million videos, and so it's an ongoing process, but there's more we need to do, and we acknowledge that. But it also allows us an opportunity to enforce rules of the road in a way we haven't been able to before as well. So we can use the forces underlying in YouTube and take them in a positive direction as well, which we are committed to doing.
And you did lay out many new ground rules for YouTube just about a week ago. But even a week after doing that, CNN still found that there were white supremacist, white nationalist videos up from Richard Spencer and KKK leader David Duke. You've hired thousands of individuals to handle this. And I just wonder if, Sundar, you believe that the predicament is so big that this is evidence that there will never be enough humans to take all of these videos down.
Even when we announced new policies last week, it will take us some time to go back through our corpus and actually enforce it, so there's a time gap there. But we've gotten much better at using a combination of machines and humans. There are many areas where we have made significant progress.
A Florida man has contracted a very rare and potentially deadly form of anthrax.
Rare inhaled form of anthrax.
A deliberate anthrax attack.
Concerns over anthrax in Florida.
Anthrax, another infection. A member of my personal staff who has contracted a cutaneous anthrax infection.
In just a week's time, we have had 4 confirmed cases of anthrax, all with media connections. ABC News.
In Nevada, to New Jersey tonight.
The U.S. House of Representatives is closing offices today until Tuesday to allow a complete sweep for traces of anthrax.
The letters sent to NBC and the New York Post were the same. This is next. Take penicillin now. Death to America, death to Israel. Allah is great. You cannot stop us. We have this anthrax. You die now. Are you afraid? Death to America, death to Israel. Allah is great.
I don't have anthrax.
Another day of germ warfare and still no sign. The worst case of bioterrorism in this country is close to being solved.
A massive change is underway at YouTube, and the debate of hate speech versus free speech is over.
YouTube says it's cracking down on hate speech and Holocaust deniers.
YouTube is banning accounts that promote discrimination. The social media company says it will crack down on users connected to supremacist content. YouTube will purge its service of hundreds of thousands of videos and channels that promote Nazism. It will also get rid of videos that deny events like the Holocaust and Sandy Hook massacre.
To all the Nazi sympathizers, white supremacists, flat earthers, and Holocaust deniers, your days on YouTube are numbered.
Red floor now!
If you've never heard of the infamous American neo-Nazi group Atomwaffen Division, chances are you never will. The only mention of them now on YouTube is within news stories about them. How about Holocaust deniers? Search for Holocaust fake, and the first thing you see is a banner with facts about the genocide, followed by news reports from established, credible outlets about Holocaust deniers. The same goes for deniers of the Sandy Hook school shooting. There's now a link to Encyclopedia Britannica, followed by news coverage calling out deniers of the massacre, with this announcement in their official blog. Quote, "Today we're taking another step in our hate speech policy by specifically prohibiting videos alleging that a group is superior in order to justify discrimination, segregation, or exclusion based on qualities like age, gender, race, caste, religion, sexual orientation, or veteran status." Previously, YouTube only reduced their view count but still left the videos up. Today, they are mostly gone.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
Gabrielle Antolovich is the president of the Billy DeFrank LGBTQ Community Center in San Jose and says YouTube had emboldened hate speech for years.
When you continue to allow hate speech out there, more people will do it. You know, if I'm a hater and I see it on YouTube, that gives me permission to hate more.
YouTube is also taking aim at so-called borderline content, videos that spread mistruths like the earth is flat. The company is limiting recommendations to these videos and again is promoting authoritative content like news reports and documentaries about them. The Anti-Defamation League said YouTube's policy changes were inadequate because the AI can miss dog whistles and subtle language. It's impossible to verify claims when platforms like YouTube say they're taking steps to remove content. They should transparently provide tools and data that allow independent, external auditing of these policy changes and their efficacy.
YouTube's move is a step beyond other sites. Facebook and Twitter still allow hoaxes on their platforms as long as they do not promote or incite violence.
A few days ago, a writer at Vox.com demanded that YouTube ban Steven Crowder. Why? For the crime of insulting him. Amazingly, many in the Washington press corps agreed. You shouldn't be allowed to mock talentless Vox writers, they said. Apparently, it's a new addition to the First Amendment. Turns out the Vox writer in question is hardly a sympathetic figure. Hardly. He's got a long history of leveling racist attacks online. He's called for physically assaulting people he disagrees with politically, even as he whines about being oppressed himself. And yet YouTube is obeying his commands. The company announced it will demonetize Steven Crowder's YouTube channel, killing his business. They did this even though in a statement they admitted that Crowder had broken no rules. Vox, amazingly, meanwhile, released a series of statements demanding that YouTube censor Crowder entirely, not just demonetize him, but bounce him off. Why is this allowed to continue? Let's stop pretending. Platforms like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, these are the modern public square, obviously. Congress has acknowledged them as such. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act gives tech companies special immunity from being sued for defamation or fraud, immunity that we don't have on this channel, for example. And the purpose of this is to allow, quote, true diversity of political discourse. It's a high-minded cause. The effect is immunity, and that immunity is worth tens of billions of dollars. It's one of the reasons the owners of Twitter and Facebook and Google are so rich. You guaranteed that to them through your representatives in the Congress. And yet, in return, these tech companies violate the terms of the deal every minute of every day. They're not open forums. They're ongoing exercises in control and censorship. The question is, how long will the rest of us stand for this?
I don't want to live in a world where our discourse is policed and determined by benevolent overlords who run Silicon Valley companies, who are always going to cater to the most powerful faction. That's what happened here. YouTube caved in, not in defense of the marginalized person, but in defense of the powerful one, the one who, despite being gay and Latino, works for a major media conglomerate. And that's what they're always going to do, is defend the mob and defend the powerful at the expense of those who are marginalized.
That is such a good point.
That's a really good question. And the reason is because originally these companies like YouTube, Google, Twitter, Facebook were supposed to be like AT&T, which are just neutral public platforms, right? So if Steven Crowder wants to call someone using AT&T and organize an anti-Vox rally, nobody expects AT&T to stop him, because the idea is it's just a platform for people to use. That's what Silicon Valley companies originally were supposed to be, and they got immunity for it. In reality, this power to censor was not one that they wanted. It was one that was foisted upon them, amazingly, largely by journalists who were demanding that they remove voices from the internet. Imagine going into journalism and then begging corporations to silence and censor people. That's the real reason they ended up in this position.
Crowder and other folks like him have been shelving critiques of what they say as saying, these are just ideas. We're talking about general ideas. What is dangerous about that framing when we're talking about LGBTQ harassment?
It's bullshit.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think this guy's got to get, I think he did the right thing, though, by calling it out, because unfortunately, I mean, not every murderer gets caught. Do you know what I mean? But we still like it when the ones who do murder go to prison. Like, do you know what I mean? And so I get, like, it's never going to be perfect, but this is very clearly against all rules of the world. Like, he needs to go where Alex Jones had to go.
So when people say, oh, it's just comedy, get over it. No. That is an excuse to allow this type of cancer to metastasize and to fester and to grow in this country, and that cancer becomes politically active and begins passing legislation that is damning and detrimental to anyone who wants progress. So you can't dismiss this as merely comedy. You can't dismiss this as being an argument over free speech.
And so what do we see happen? Well, we saw it gradually happen, and we saw it happen on the very outer edges, the very extremities of the internet, the extreme. Well, the Daily Stormer, that's a terrible, oh my God, Andrew Anglin's the fucking devil. We need to unperson him. Oh, and they went about unpersoning Andrew Anglin in a way you would not believe. They took away his fucking everything. He's not allowed to have a website. He's not allowed to have DDoS protection. He's not allowed to have funding. And nobody really said anything. Because they were assured, they were promised, this is just a unique case. Andrew Anglin is just an extremist. He says all this horrible shit. We need to get rid of him. Everybody was copacetic with that. Some people raised their voices, but not a lot did. Now we're going to look at maybe alternative media. Well, my God, Gab, have you seen what they post on Gab? Some horrendous things. We need to do something about that. They need to be dealt with. Let's take away their servers. Let's take away their payments. Let's just cut them off at their knees. Gut them so they don't have a chance to compete. And again, people were like, well, that is kind of shitty, but okay. But every step of the way, they started targeting more and more things until you kind of find yourself in the situation you're looking at now, where Facebook and their CEO is talking to people in the European Union and people like Angela Merkel about instituting new hate speech policies that apply worldwide on Facebook for what you can and cannot post, for what and how you're dealt with when you break the rules, where it's the 3 Ds. They want to deplatform you, deperson you, and demonetize you. They want to make it impossible for you to have any motivation to say what you want to say, to communicate with other people that think the things that you think, to express yourself in a way that runs counter to what they want you to express. They'll take away your PayPal account and your Patreon, and maybe, God forbid, your bank account, like what happened to a person that was involved in the Proud Boys. His actual bank took away his checking account, which you would think would be highly illegal, but they did it nonetheless. They're going to deplatform you. They're going to remove you from social media. They're going to talk to each other. We found this out when the James Damore thing happened, where he had showed conversations between different people at different tech companies talking about how they communicate and pass names back and forth. Hey, we at Facebook got rid of this guy. So somebody at Twitter says, we'll get rid of him too, leading to them being essentially depersoned. You don't exist anymore. You have no more outlet to speak. You have no more outlet to say anything. I'll tell you what you're going to find instead. You're going to find blue check marks who are going to be saying the opposite of anything that would be considered funny or controversial or edgy or interesting or different. Those days, they're done. Twitter is radically transformed from what it used to be. YouTube is radically transformed from what it used to be. Facebook is radically transformed from what it used to be. And that's how this works. They've instituted little policies here and there, inching their way towards what they want. I mean, if you want to fuck somebody over, if you want to really screw the world up, you don't do it in a dramatic fashion instantly. You do it very methodically. You do it very slowly over an extended period of time. People are generally lazy. I am, you are, we all are. We like to take the path of least resistance. And so when those changes are gradual and small and incremental, we don't get our hackles up. We don't get fucked up about it as much as we probably should get fucked up about it. And so we allow it to happen. We become very passive about it.
Electoral college. Huh. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing.
We can have national voting, and that means get rid of the Electoral College and every vote.
Yep. Why? Oh, because of this.
Donald Trump will carry the state of Florida.
I wouldn't call anything encouraging for Hillary Clinton at the moment, to be honest with you, my friend.
So what's next? Tonight we're asking what is next for the Electoral College.
It's been in place since, well, 1789, and it's worked pretty well since then. But that was before Hillary Clinton lost the presidency thanks to a shortage of electoral votes. Now there are new and predictable calls to abolish the entire system. So would you be introducing this legislation if Hillary won?
Of course. And the idea would be to change the rules so that states would allocate their electors not to the person who got the most votes in their state, but to the candidate that got the most votes nationally.
I mean, there's no question that the popular vote has been diminished in terms of making the final decision about who's the president of the United States, and we need to deal with that.
Doesn't this date back to slavery?
Sure. But the reason why it's important to do that is because the Electoral College was established in the first place to make sure that slave states were able to hold outsized power. That's not a system that we need to keep in place today. Making sure that racism can be an economic engine of America is something that we should try to dismantle as quickly as possible.
I think you make a great point. It is also whack. It is very, very whack for the reasons Jess mentioned, as well as the democracy reasons.
That an anachronism that was designed for another time no longer works. If we've moved toward one person, one vote, that's how we select winners. I was amused after the French elections when I was listening to an interview with a French electoral expert, and he said, well, unlike your country, the person who wins the most votes wins. So I think it needs to be eliminated. I'd like to see us move beyond it, yes.
Do you think the Electoral College system should be re-examined?
I do. I'll tell you why. I mean, on the surface, you just said it. We have one candidate who got 2 million more votes than the other candidate, but she is not going to be sworn in as president. And I think on the surface, that's a little bit weird.
Well, it's a basic principle. We ought to count all of the votes ought to count equally, and the person who gets the most votes ought to be president. It's the way we do it for mayor or congressman, for United States senator, for governor, for the state house, for the county council. The person who gets the most votes gets the office. This is a very simple proposition. The majority of the American public are for this change. I don't underestimate the difficulty of amending the Constitution. Once we make this change, it will be looked back upon as though it was obvious, it was intuitive, and it was a continued evolution of our democracy.
We continue to adhere to a system that, again, undermines, in my view, the principle of political equality and simply doesn't follow the straightforward logic of majority rule.
Well, first of all, we've got to repair our democracy. The Electoral College needs to go because it's made our society less and less democratic.
I think its origins, as we're talking about foundational and structural racism in this country, were to protect some of the institutions, including slavery, that were and are inimical to our democracy. But ultimately, we need to abolish the Electoral College.
In this conversation about how we repair the damage, how we make things right, and how we keep from committing the same injustices going forward is squarely connected to the reason that we are all convened here today, and that is fixing our democracy. So yes, if we got rid of the Electoral College, we get a little bit closer.
I believe that it's time to have popular elections so people's vote decide who the president is rather than the Electoral College.
You want to abolish the Electoral College?
I think the Electoral College needs to go.
How much traction are you getting on the Electoral College? A lot of people say it has to go, but yet here we are a gazillion years later and it's still here.
Well, we are making progress. You know, actually we have an agreement amongst multiple states now to be bound by the popular vote. And we only need a few more states right now to make that compact effective.
Luckily for us, there is a way to get rid of the Electoral College, and it's called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact.
We can easily change to a system where the candidate with the most votes always wins. In fact, the process is already underway. Once states representing a majority of electoral votes approve this, the process will change. The president will be elected by the national popular vote. You can make it happen. Together we can make this change.
Well, the Electoral College in Nevada could be gone before the next presidential election. A bill just passed the state Senate. Instead of Nevada giving its 6 electoral votes to the candidate who gets the most votes, it would actually give the votes to whoever wins the national popular vote.
42 is passed.
Senate Democrats passed a bill to add Colorado to a multi-state pact, awarding our votes for president to whomever wins the national popular vote.
We are, last I checked, the legislature, and we do, under the United States Constitution, have an authority to determine whatever manner we would like
Meanwhile, in the Ocean State, Governor Chafee has signed legislation approved by the General Assembly to join the National Popular Vote Compact. It means Rhode Island's 4 electoral votes would go to the winner of the national popular vote in presidential elections.
The state Senate has also endorsed a proposal to have the national popular vote determine which presidential candidate gets Maine's electoral college votes. That vote was 19-16 in favor of joining more than a dozen other states in this compact.
On Tuesday, Oregon Senate approved a bill to join 14 other states and Washington, D.C. in the National Popular Vote Compact.
The Electoral College is a frustrating system for many, and now there's a push in New Mexico and nationwide to scrap it.
Mr. President, I rise today to discuss legislation I introduced to eliminate the Electoral College and ensure that the candidate who wins the most votes will be elected president. Now, clearly, this has nothing to do with this past election. There are recounts going on. We'll see where that goes. But the bottom line is this looks to the future. But when I tried to explain it to my grandkids after this election, they said, Grandma, who won? Well, I told them, Donald Trump. Well, wait a minute. Didn't Mrs. Clinton get more votes? Yes. You know, what if we did that in sport? I'm a big basketball fan, major basketball fan. What if the team that got the most votes, the most points, didn't win? What if that happened? What would people think? Well, why not? Well, because not everybody on the team touched the ball.
The beauty is that it only takes into effect once there are enough states that have joined the compact. In other words, once 270 electoral votes out of 538 have been represented within the compact, these 270 votes will be forced to vote whichever way the popular vote goes, forcing the winner of the election to follow the popular vote. This will remove all power from the Electoral College and return it back to the voters. This design is a systemic issue that needs to be addressed. This isn't as challenging as you might think. 78% of Democrats support a direct popular vote for the president, along with 60% of Republicans and 73% of independents. This is a bipartisan issue with overwhelming support, and we can make it happen. But getting rid of the Electoral College should be a clear priority, which is already well underway.